Okay, test, 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 test. Just checking the audio real quick. Delay comes through okay. Okay, test, 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 test. Just checking the audio real quick. Okay, sounds good. Okay. Scene set up over here. Alright, that looks good. The icon's moving. Music is on this time. Cool, okay, I think we're about ready. Oh, hey there, Kakuzu. How's it going, man? Things are going pretty well over here. Had a pretty busy week. I'm working a bit of overtime for the next few weeks. So I'd hope to stream a little bit during the week, but unfortunately, just haven't had the time. But that's only going to the end of the month. Once I get to February, things will kind of get back to normal. I'll have a little bit more time for personal interests and not just being behind my computer working. But it's all good. I like my job, so I can't really complain. How about you? How have you been? Am I remembering correctly? Did you say you were having a little bit of back pain last week? Hopefully that's reduced a little bit. I know that sucks to have to deal with. Gonna get some water 1 second. I spent all day in the car. Oh, that's rough. Are you traveling? Are you doing like a road trip? Oh wait, no, you drive for work. Am I remembering that correctly? Sorry if I forget some details, by the way. I'll try to keep everything straight. But yeah, that's a lot, man. A few years ago, oh, good, good. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, that can be a huge make a huge change. The reduction in pain for sure. I had a partner previously. She really wanted to go see like this dinosaur museum that was about to close. It was 10 or 12 hours away from where we left, so we didn't have a hotel booked or anything. So we got up really early in the morning, drove like 10 hours straight down, got to see the museum for a couple hours, and then had to get right back in the car. So, and after that, like my knee still hurts a little bit because of the way that it was placed in the car. So, yeah, those those long trips can be pretty intense. Had to check your passport to stay 3 months more. Oh, okay. Yeah, that I hope everything went okay. Oh, you're in Morocco. That's awesome. I always wanted to go there. What's it like? How are things over there? Um See, I went to Monaco a long time ago, but obviously that's not the same. Um yeah, that's really cool. I take it you travel a lot for work. Do you do a lot of, is it mostly driving or do you fly as well? Do you kind of go between countries? Yeah, yeah, I bet it's exhausting. Sounds like a lot. When I was a kid, my mom used to work a job where she needed to travel, and part of what was fun about it is that we got a chance to go check out different countries and have like new experiences on the one hand. On the other hand, though, it's like when you're moving around a lot, as I'm sure you know, it's sometimes it can be a little harder to keep friendships going or just like I don't know, keep things normal. Sometimes you just kind of want to stay still for a little bit. Oh yeah, that's really great to hear. That's really great to hear. Yeah. Oh cool. Yeah, whereabouts in France do you live? I've been to Nice a few times, and when I was a kid, I would have said that Nice was probably my favorite place in the world. Just going along the Promenade des Anglais. Sorry for my horrible French accent. But yeah, we would go to the Promenade des Anglais, and we'd have a Claire au chocolat or du chocolat, and just it was beautiful. It was like paradise. I don't know if you know if it's still there, but I think there was this place I went to called the Parc Floral Phoenix, something like that. They had like this big glass dome and all these animals. Um, when I was, it was a long time ago, but I remember it being really beautiful there. Okay. Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you'll be happy to be back home and have a chance to stop moving around for a little bit. Although it's really cool that you got a chance to see Morocco as well. Yeah, right there close to the beach. Yep, it's beautiful. I was a stupid kid though. I brought my cat with me one time. We brought her in the road trip, and I was like, "Oh, let's bring her to the beach. What could possibly go wrong?" And then she immediately got lost, and she went up into the rocks that led towards the street. And so my mom and I like recruited as many people as we could, and we tried tried desperately to find her for hours till she eventually came out. What a relaxing day. Oh, from Lille. Okay, am I pronouncing that right? Lille? That's awesome. Hope things are okay over there. I've heard that Europe is in a bit of turbulence, but I guess that's true all over the place. So we got her back in the end. It's okay. I just felt bad because I was an idiot and then I like wasted everybody's vacation time. But you know, everybody was super friendly. You know, they were very patient with this goofy little kid, and his cat. So cool. Well, yeah, I'd love to hear anything more that you'd like to share about either your holiday or or where you're at with work or what you're planning to do when you get home. And at some point I'm gonna start babbling about paper bombs. But as always, feel free to like interrupt me with any questions, whether that's or comments, if that's related to Naruto or like I love video games as well. If you have any like games that you're playing that you want to talk about, anything fun. I've been playing a lot of Astrobot recently. And then the Silent Hill 2 remake, which I know is like night and day difference, but anything you want to talk about, feel free to interrupt me. Yeah, the world is shaking right now. It's sad to see. You know, I was just talking to my barber of all people about this recently, that like some of the same exact problems that we thought were going to get resolved like 10-20 years ago are still ongoing, right? They're still we seem to be not very good at solving certain problems as a species, unfortunately. You know, I know this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but I think reading Naruto when I was younger definitely like affected my worldview a bit, and the way that Naruto just constantly refuses to give in to like hatred and revenge after the Zabuza fight anyway, and tries to always find like a friendly solution. I know people like hate Bakuno Jutsu for some reason, I guess because they just want to see like a big dramatic showdown, but I don't know, it was so like inspiring to me to see this character who was just, no matter what, he was never going to give up on his ideals. No matter what, he was never going to give in to the cycle of hatred and violence, and was just going to try to find some way, even if he had no idea what that was going to be, to try to connect with people even through hatred and suffering. Even though he hated pain so much, you know, he was still refused to give in. Honestly, yeah, I had this pulled up. I wish that sort of thing was more prevalent in the world today, but what are you gonna do? Oh, you're a writer. Okay, working for cinema right now, and later I'll do my own book story. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Do you already have an idea for the kind of book that you want to write? Hopefully, so I hope, and I'm curious if you're able to like, if you write for work, if you're like writing all day and spending a lot of time doing that, are you then able to go write for fun without it being like tiring? Are you still able to, because I have friends who work in like music, and they'll like have to perform music or like do audio work for 8-10 hours a day, sometimes more, and then coming home like they just don't want to play their guitar anymore, and it's kind of sad, right? Because they lose that opportunity to like have the joy of the instrument. So hope sorry, I don't want to sound too pessimistic. I hope that you're able to still like have like time to yourself to just explore and do whatever you want with your writing, because that's very valuable, obviously. Time passes quickly for a human, but very slowly for eras. Yeah, it will change many, many years later. Yeah, it's, I mean, like if you look at the way the world was 2,000 years ago, I mean, we're probably a lot better than then. But they'll have a lot of growing pains, I guess. I don't like essentially for Obito because it's anticlimactic. Obito needed a sigh. Not sure what you mean by he needed a sigh. You mean like he needed to have his head checked, basically, like he needed a psychologist. That would be fair. Oh, ancient Egypt, yeah, that's really cool. I can't claim to know much about it. I did get a chance to go see the pyramids when I was young, because my mom was traveling. So that was fun, but I forgot everything I learned in one ear out the other sometimes. Oh, you're a musician too. Cool. Passionate by your own work. That's really good. That's really, really good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's awesome when you can get paid to do something you love, as long as it doesn't like I have a lot of friends who, well, I don't have millions of friends or anything, but friends and friends of friends and like work colleagues and stuff know people who've worked in the video games industry, for example, and they get super passionate and excited. Oh, I get to work on video games. This is the best thing ever, right? And then they spend like a year doing it, and not only do they hate it, but they also come out of it and they're like, they don't even like want to play games that much anymore, because it's I don't know if you've ever heard the expression like, don't look in the kitchen of your favorite restaurant, because you don't want to see how the sausage is made. It's something like that, right? Like, I might be combining two things there actually, but the point being, like, once you actually get behind the scenes and see how everything's put together, you know, like people who work in quality assurance will just play the same level in a broken state, in a beta state, like over and over again for months. And after that, it can be like, oh shit, I don't ever want to touch a video game again. I'm exaggerating, of course, but I think you know what I mean. Pain, it's okay. Oh, you play violin. Nice. Very nice. Do you play like classical repertoire? Do you play with any like a string group or anything like that? More modern stuff or a mix? 1 second. There's I can't remember the name of the band. I saw a band a little while ago that had an electric violinist that was pretty cool. I think it had like a piezo pickup that was attached to the bridge of the violin, and he was, so it was a regular violin, but it was like being amplified electrically, and he was like putting it through a bunch of effects like delays and phasers and all kinds of stuff. It sounded really cool. Oh cool, that's awesome. I'm sorry, I got distracted. You played in a church. That's awesome. Cool too. Hope you enjoy the music that you play. I know a lot of the classical repertoire stuff can sometimes be like, when you're in an orchestra, every once in a while you'll just get stuck with something that you're like, oh really, we're playing this again. But man, the feeling of I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about. The feeling when you're with an orchestra and like everybody just like locks in together and they're in sync, and you know, you like the song, there's those big swells of all the music, and you feel like you're a part of this experience with everybody else there. It's so cool. I bet the church sounded awesome, right? Was it very what's the word for it? Like resonant, and did it have like really good acoustics? Playing in churches and cathedrals and stuff, it can sound like very almost magical. Everyone is very nice and passionate. The show, the chief is marvelous. I can't complain. Very nice. I'm really glad to hear that. It's a bit of a dying. Well, I shouldn't say that. What can I say? I wonder if it's hard for people who work in the position of a chief, as you say, to keep interest, especially amongst younger people, like who are trying, like they have a choice, right, between of all the different things that they could be spending their time on. I wonder if, and I hope that like that the new generation, whatever that winds up being, is as passionate about music and classical instruments. I hope that we're not seeing like a total, like a fall off over time away from that. I don't think so. I don't think there would be necessarily, because it's such a big part of our culture, right? Going back centuries. I don't think that's going to get lost. But also, I think, you know, with how many electronic music making tools, I wonder if it's difficult at all for like music teachers and orchestra, like conductors and stuff like that, to keep interest, or just like to keep people motivated to play the classics. Yeah, that's really good. That's cool. It sounds like you've got some good stuff going on. Happy to hear that both that you're getting the opportunity to travel to a cool place and then returning home soon. I'm sure it'll be nice to be back home. Hopefully you have a chance to like reconnect with people as well. I don't know if you like how personal you want to get with a stranger on the internet, but like I've done the long distance relationship thing before, and I know it can be challenging. So hopefully, like if you have anything like that going on, hopefully that's all resolved and you get a chance to reconnect. Oh hey Howard, how you doing, man? Hope you had a good week. How have you been? What's going on? Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you both of you, by the way, for stopping by. It's been the discussion last time was really exciting. It was a lot of fun, and I really appreciated all the questions and the commentary. And it's really nice to see you guys again too. I've been doing pretty well. I've been working a bit of overtime. Just have a couple of things that I'm trying to wrap up and help out on, a couple of projects, and then hopefully by the end of the month, things will get back to normal. I have a few ideas for videos and streams that I would like to try out. I just haven't really had as much time as I wanted to because of those things going on. Not a complaint. I like the stuff I've been doing, and also I'm looking forward to getting a chance to, you know, for one, maybe making the stream a little bit better, adding some better graphics. A lot of this stuff was put together pretty quickly. Getting a new microphone at some point would be nice. I don't know. Let me know what you think of the audio quality. I think it's like okay, but I was listening back to some of it and I think I could maybe do better. There's like room noise and my fan in the background is probably pretty loud, so we'll see. Okay, this week has been progressive. More job fairs to attend and handling my assignments. Oh, that sounds like a lot all at once. Did you mention last time that you're, oh, sorry about that, that you're working and also going to school at the same time? I'll be looking for the majority of the stream because I'm not done. Yeah, no worries. Feel free to just hang out. No pressure, no worries at all. I appreciate you stopping by. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them my way. I'm going to be talking about paper bombs, I think, to start off with, and just kind of going freeform from there. Oh, you can answer questions on Han. Actually, I might pick your brain about that at some point, Alhert, because I know that somebody in a debate said that Han had like the fastest taijutsu out of anybody in the entire series or something like that. And I think that's in the 4th data book, if I remember correctly. And they were trying to use that to say that means he has faster taijutsu than like Kaguya or Night Guy or stuff like that. And I didn't know enough about him at the time to be able to like debunk it, but something about that sounded a little fishy to me. So I'd be curious if you just have a knee-jerk reaction to that at all. Oh, you work on mental health. That's awesome. You haven't started your first day yet. Okay, so you have a little bit of time to maybe wrap up your assignments before you dive into all that. Mental health. I have a couple of friends who work in mental health, for one at a hospital and then one at a university. And I don't know, I think it's an amazing profession. Like, you're helping people in very critical and vulnerable moments of their lives. So I have a lot of respect for that. Definitely. Mental health is so important and so undervalued. Like, people learning to take care of themselves mentally. So good on you for doing that and managing your school at the same time, your education at the same time. That's a lot. A scan on it, but it's unclear to which period after the Kazekage rescue work. Oh, I see. I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I think that can be part of the difficulty too, right? Is just figuring out exactly like what part of the, like when you have databook statements, like what part of the series do they actually refer to? You know, I'm sure you guys know that statement that's like so when Pain sets off to the village to go get Naruto before the Konoha fight, there's a statement in the Shonen Jump release that he's the strongest man in the Akatsuki, right? Like, that's something that gets brought up in Swag's debate with Noodles. At a certain point, it says, like, the strongest man in the Akatsuki heads off towards the village, something like that. And Noodles' contention at that point was like, well, you can't trust that statement necessarily because Kakuzu was dead at that time, right? So that statement, strongest man in the Akatsuki, does it mean that has ever been in the Akatsuki ever, or that is currently alive in the Akatsuki? Like, what is the scope and what is the range of that statement, and can we actually use it for Kakuzu or for Itachi or whatever? Oil release is crazy, to be honest. I think he should scale to the 4th Raikage due to his feat in the war. Let me try that again, sorry. I think he should scale to the 4th Raikage, okay, due to his feat in the war as an Edo Tensei. But would he scale to KCM properly? Not really, since Obito amps him too. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you're of the belief that the 6 paths of pain, or 6 paths of Obito's 6 paths, that they're amped. Do you think that they're amped just with the like kinetic vision from the Sharingan and the shared field of vision from the Rinnegan, or do you think that, like, do you agree with Swag's point that they're natively amped as paths of pain? I think is what he said, right? Like, Obito's putting chakra in them and like making them even stronger via the chakra rods. Do you have a take on that? Naruto divided his chakra to plenty of Naruto clones, so it's not full KCM Naruto he faced. So I wonder about that. You're right. He had split himself up into, what is it, like 5 or 6 different clones. But would he himself have like regenerated, or like made enough chakra after doing that he's still fighting at full power? Like obviously his stamina reserves would have been depleted because he used stamina to make the chakra to then make those shadow clones. But then once his stamina replenishes, I think he's like the original body is still fighting at full strength, right? Or am I getting that wrong? Han is dead at some point between Kazekage rescue and the Itachi fight. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I wonder, we don't know which Akatsuki member killed him, do we? Because if it's Itachi or what's his name? Am I blanking? Oh, Kisame. If it's Kisame or Itachi, both of them have abilities, like they have ways to kill Jinchuuriki without even engaging in taijutsu in the first place. Like Itachi could just put him under Tsukuyomi, and Kisame could just use the giant water bubble thing and not ever have to get into close range. So him being defeated by either of them wouldn't be an anti-feat, but like if Hidan, I know it wasn't Hidan, okay, but if Hidan took him down, then obviously that might challenge that statement, because how is the slowest Akatsuki member taking down the guy with the fastest taijutsu? Obviously I'm like making shit up, but I thought Han died before Shippuden. Oh, that could be. It could be. I'd be curious if that were the case. You don't think they're amped? Okay, that's fair. I think there's some like openness to interpretation. It's just I imagine full KCM Naruto versus them. Yeah, I mean, like putting it this way, right? This is something I was thinking about earlier today. I forget the exact point. I'll try and pull up my notes. But if Naruto, oh yeah, it was later in the debate, sometime around here, around the 1 hour mark, Noodles says that he thinks that Kakuzu is stronger and more durable than KCM Naruto. Or he definitely says stronger, more durable than Six Tails Naruto, and then I think he says KCM as well. And I was trying to think of like what are all the crazy things that KCM Naruto is doing at that point in the series, and like how many people is he fighting at the same time? He's fighting Obito in the Jinchuuriki, he's fighting fucking Edo Madara, he's fighting the third Raikage, and then wherever else he is on the battlefield, he's fighting those fights too. So imagine that instead of that, he was just fighting with his main body and those like clones that are relative to those other characters all in one place. He's insanely strong. Like, we all know that he's strong, we all know that he's capable, but if all that power is consolidated into one place, it's just insane. It's off the charts, right? That's unknown to the eyes, and the ghetto statue isn't fully open. Oh yeah, that's a good point. There's no info on who killed Han or if Han was captured at all. Oh, I see. Well, so you think they... Wait, Han... What was Han's, Biju? I thought it was... It's not, Isobu, right? That was supposed to be Rin's? Was it Kokuo? The like, giant white horse-looking thing? Because... Yeah, I'm trying to think if I don't remember them actually mentioning him. You would be the guy to ask, right? I'm not sure if I remember seeing any other mentions of that besides the data book. Oh yeah, Kokuo, the Five Tails. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for confirming that. Yeah, so I don't think we ever see Kokuo being pulled in either. But when, if I'm remembering correctly, I forget what the scene is, but like when all the Biju and Jinchuuriki are talking to Naruto, in that like mental plane thing, I think Kokuo is there with Han, right? And so that would be the most recent Biju with the most recent Jinchuuriki. So I think that would suggest that Han was captured, but I might be misinterpreting. I'm not sure. A little further down. Yeah, dolphin horse is cool. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a ways down. Let's try 5. What is this? 565. Let's try 575. This is, so I don't know if you guys use that is definitely not what I was looking for. I don't know if you guys have used Manga C for scans, but I think they've changed over to this new site, Weeb Central. Weeb Central is great so far. It's basically the same thing, but it also limits like how fast you can switch between chapters. So just a heads up that like if you're like going really fast, it'll block you temporarily. It goes away in about a minute, but yeah. Has he already? But there's so much going on here. But yeah, I want to remember this for later because Tsunade is going to come up in the debate and just the amount of stuff that she's capable of doing. Yeah, I think we mentioned this last time, right? That Noodles had made the claim that he thought Kakuzu could take on the entire Leaf Village, and so I went over and reviewed like what Tsunade actually does in the war, and like this is basically like after healing the other characters like the Tsuchikage and the Raikage, this is like the first thing she does, right? She gets skewered through the chest with the Susanoo, breaks it, or the Susanoo blade rather, breaks it in half with like a single attack, and then grabs it and smacks Madara with it. That's how she starts the fight. So I just don't want Tsunade to get underplayed, that's all I'm saying. But yeah, so but I guess I'm not sure, like Isobu was supposed to go to Rin, if I'm remembering correctly, and obviously Rin doesn't show up in that plane. Does Isobu even show up with the Jinchuuriki? I guess not, because he was absorbed on his own. So yeah. Anyway, I guess like some of that stuff is just unknown, like who his previous Jinchuuriki is, unless they go into it more in the anime. But I don't recall from the manga. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, so I'm gonna get going with some of the paper bomb talk in just a second. But as always, feel free to chime in, or feel free to interrupt. I'm gonna start off. Oh, Yagura was there. Oh, okay, good point. Yep. Yes, and Han and Fu, and Utakata, and Roshi was there as well. Obviously, Gaara wasn't there. And Gyuki wasn't there, but that accounts for everybody. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Okay, so I want to start this section by addressing something that came up in the debate. Basically, there's this moment in the fight, right, in the Kakuzu and Hidan versus Team Kakashi fight, where when the fight starts off, let's just review what happens quickly. We went over this before, so I won't take too long on this. But right as the fight is starting, what's his name? Why am I blanking out his name? Shikamaru, there we go. So Shikamaru starts off the fight. He starts off by attempting to grab Hidan and Kakuzu with a shadow possession. And it looks like, based on this onomatopoeia sound effect text here, that it is actually making a very quiet sound. And both Hidan and Kakuzu are able to perceive that, and they use it to jump out of the way. Okay, no big surprises there. Shikamaru forks his shadow possession off into two different directions and is pursuing them both individually. And he's guiding them into a trap, basically, because he's got these paper bombs attached to kunai that are flying at them, and he's basically making them maneuver to where he wants them to be so that the paper bombs will hit them. Now, notice that neither of these characters decide to try to further jump out of the way. They jumped out of the way of the shadow possession, but they don't then try to like speed away and outmaneuver the kunai, right? Maybe you could argue it's because they've just landed or something, but they decide, or they reflexively get into a defensive position at this point. So Hidan uses his scythe, and Kakuzu uses his diamond morph and hardens his hand, and they both manage to block the incoming attack. Also interesting to note that Hidan doesn't just like, open his arms and say, "Come at me, bro," or something, and like tank it to the face. Kakuzu also doesn't just like stand there folding his arms and say, "This can't even hurt me," right? They both take a defensive measure. Then we hear the explosion, and after the explosion, we see that Hidan's clothing is ripped a bit, and more importantly, this cable that attaches to his scythe, which I think we can safely assume is metal, because in addition to just like the way that it's drawn and the material it appears to have, you can see this sound effect, the ka-ching over here, seems to indicate like a metal on metal impact, and that makes sense, right? So that impact, the detonation rather, of the paper bomb is strong enough to break through his scythe. So his scythe falls to the ground. All these little fragments are, they're not vaporized, right? So it's not that powerful, but it is enough to shatter them apart. Now Kakuzu, or Hidan, moves off to the side, and then Kakuzu says, I harden my arm, so I'm fine. Now, we can talk about this, we could dispute this potentially, but the phrasing here is important. I harden my arm, therefore I'm fine. Now, if you look at that and you put it directly against what Hidan said, Hidan is immortal, right? He can have his limbs chopped off, but he's not going to die. And he has just sacrificed his, quote unquote sacrifice, like he's damaged his scythe in order to protect himself from the impact of this paper bomb, despite being immortal. Then he dodges out of the way, goes, right? It seems like he's in some amount of like effort, struggle, whatever. And he looks at Kakuzu with this alarmed expression on his face. And then Kakuzu says, I harden my arm, so I'm fine. So that, to me, the clear implication of all of that suggests to me that Kakuzu could have potentially been damaged, and both he and Hidan acknowledge this as a possibility, not a guarantee, but a possibility. Oh yeah, metal rope. Oh, sorry, I missed a comment here. Hidan blocks also basic shuriken with his rope, the metal rope. Yeah, absolutely. Right, so it's the paper bomb, but then also the impact of the kunai as well that he's trying to avoid. So, with that being said, I think it's very clear that Kakuzu is saying, he's like reassuring Hidan's concern, and Hidan should have an understanding of Kakuzu's abilities and the characteristics as a fighter at this point, right? So, that being established, let's look at what happens next briefly. So the shadows start to emanate outwards. Hidan has now dropped his scythe that's all the way over here, and he's backing up to get away from the shadows. Kakuzu's also backing up. And even though they say they won't keep falling for the same trick, Kakuzu notices that Shikamaru is coming in from above, and again, he thinks it's a letter bomb. He tells Hidan to watch out, indicating that it's a potential threat, and he gets ready to dodge it, right? No, he doesn't use Diamond Morph again. We could talk about why, but the important thing here is that he tries to dodge it again. And then it lands on the ground, and then the fight continues. So, what I think we are being told here is that both Hidan and Kakuzu view paper bombs as a potential threat, as something that could impact and harm them. And they either need to use a defensive measure or they need to get out of the way. Otherwise, they could be put in a disadvantageous position. So with that being said, I want to go to this moment in the debate, and I'm going to play it probably uninterrupted for about a minute and a half. Let me know if, I think the audio is loud enough, but let me know if it's not. And we'll just see what the debaters say about this particular thing.
Because it gives.
Yeah.
So it could possibly, and like also like if you know like about like.
Oh, sorry. For context, they're talking at this point in the debate. They're talking about the dog and the bite force on the jaws of the dog, and Weeaboo is saying that he thinks that the dog could potentially bite Kakuzu and harm him.
Strength and like physics, like and things like that. Like when
bite force is generally though.
Bite force is extremely powerful.
Sorry, let me read this comment. Fair suggestion. Kakuzu wants Hidan to concentrate, but you can see later he doesn't use Diamond Morph, but what is essentially the topic? Okay, yep. So the topic is, I'm spoiling it a little bit, but the topic is, how strong exactly are paper bombs, and are paper bombs capable of killing basically anyone that they hit? So let me finish playing this little clip and you'll understand. I think it will explain better than I can. You'll see.
Oh,
yeah, it is. It is the top. It is like usually the most pressure you can generate, but how much pressure can that dog generate is the question, right?
Yeah. So again, they're talking about the regenerating endless summoning dog that Nagato has, and Weeaboo's trying to argue that it would be able to exert enough pressure to damage Kakuzu, basically.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, Kakuzu tanked a paper bomb, so that's more than that dog has shown, you know? Like.
Yeah. Also, because like we just established, like it won't go down by strikes. At the very least, even if it can't hurt Kakuzu, it could bite him just to hold him down for other pains to do whatever they need to do.
You think it can hold him down?
Yeah, I think so. Something of that.
Well, we're gonna talk about speed later. I've been kind of waiting to talk about speed, but I don't think this dog is gonna be able to touch this motherfucker. But
Okay, that's a valid point. Like if the dog can't actually catch up to him and make contact with him, then the amount of damage he would do is irrelevant. But let's keep going. There's another point being made about the paper bomb I want to get to in just a second.
Let's continue. And that's all the summons, right?
Yeah, and basically even if it can't hurt him, like, because we established, like, it's like called the endless dog summon. The only way to stop it's like taking down the user. Like,
yeah, he had to kill the animal path.
Yeah.
I will point out, very briefly, it's not really the topic for tonight, but we talked about the chameleon, we talked about the dog, and we talked about the crab previously. There's a whole bunch of other summons that, like, just talking about the debate specifically, it would have been cool to hear Weeaboo talk a bit more about those, because just gonna pick one. I think I might have mentioned this before, I'm not sure, but just to pick one, in chapter 3, the 375, I think? 275, yeah. So when Jiraiya first goes into Sage mode, he gets rid of the chameleon. He then uses what he calls his widest ranging and fastest Sage mode attack, which is the Kebari Senbon, or Kebari Senbon, however you pronounce that. And Pain manages to negate this, coming at him from behind. Okay, yeah, so Jiraiya's in the smoke here, and he feints out with a frog, and then he jumps from the opposite direction, comes behind the animal path, and the animal path blocks his widest ranging and fastest Sage mode attack with this panda. Now, how does Kebari Senbon scale to, I don't know, Kakuzu's Wind Enhanced Fire? I don't know. We could talk about that separately. The point that I want to illustrate, though, is that he can summon other things very, very quickly to intercept very, very quick attacks and absorb them. And so that's something that I think Weeaboo could have done maybe better, is just bringing in more of the animal summons, like really representing the whole collection at once, as opposed to just saying, well, the dog would do this and the chameleon would do that, etc., etc. But to get back to the paper bombs, let me just finish playing this clip.
Yeah, one of the ways I think they could win is just wearing Pain or Kakuzu down until he runs out of chakra, and then take him out.
That's what Pain got to worry about. You ain't gonna be worrying about Kakuzu with that, man. Come on now.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very silly statement. I think, like, the idea that Kakuzu has more chakra than Pain, I disagree with, but whatever, it's not the point.
Pain could be hiding in his invisible chameleon while the dog's doing all the fighting until Kakuzu finally runs out of strength.
Yeah, Kakuzu is too smart for that, man. He's not gonna just waste his chakra on some trash. Something that can do nothing
he
there.
wasted his chakra on the paper bomb, so unless you admit that the paper bombs would hurt.
Listen, man, that's not an anti-feat. That paper bomb could be OP. Yeah. Like, he might need to put chakra, because that paper bomb could have blown up Jubito out here, man. Like, I don't know. That might be enough to destroy that dog, for all as I'm concerned. But
okay, so if to kind of go over the argument real quick, hopefully I have a sticky note up. It looks like it's showing on the stream. Yeah, because it's using display capture. Okay, so to go over the argument really quick, the idea is that paper bombs hurt. Why can't I spell? Hurt Jubito. Okay, and therefore they could kill the dog. Therefore, they it's not an anti-feat for Kakuzu to block them. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. This idea that paper bombs can potentially hurt characters all the way up to like the 6 paths level, or I guess Obito is not technically 6 paths level, but he has some 6 paths like power, right? He's the Juubi, he's the Jinchuuriki of the Ten Tails, so he's up there as one of the strongest characters in the series, right? And one of two things is possible here, broadly speaking. One is that a paper bomb can actually hurt Jubito, in which case, what does that actually mean about how durability works in the series, and how paper bombs themselves work? What are the implications that we can draw from that to look back at the entire series and say, like, oh, if even somebody who is that strong can be harmed by what's really a tiny explosion, then does that mean that basically everybody in Naruto has a really low durability unless they're using some kind of jutsu to increase their durability, or some kind of shield or something like that? Or did this not happen, and does that tell us something about Kakuzu's durability, right? Like, his durability isn't actually that high, because like his base durability, because even he feels the need to wall up against a paper bomb, if that made any sense. Let me check the comments real quick. Fair suggestion. Kakuzu wants Hidan to concentrate, but you can see later he doesn't use Diamond Morph. Yeah, so I'm curious about the Diamond Morph thing. Because it looks like... Here's something that I'd be curious to see if you have a take on, right? Let's look at when Kakuzu uses Diamond Morph with Choji. Right, at this point, right, we all know this, right? This is such a pivotal moment in the fight. Everybody knows this, right? But like, he uses Diamond Morph right before he gets hit with Choji. Now, I think there's maybe two ways to look at that. One is that he felt that Choji's attack was like gonna hit his entire body, so rather than just hardening a single part, he hardened his whole body, or like more parts of his body, including his head. And in order to harden more parts of his body, he needs to use that hand seal, because he doesn't need to use it if he's just doing like his hand or something, but if he's doing a large area, then he needs to do the hand seal. Another way to look at it is that every time he uses Diamond Morph is an Earth style jutsu, right? And so he needs to weave the hand signs to do this, and once he does that, he can use Diamond Morph once, and then if he wants to use it again, he needs to use the hand signs again. Now, I don't know if that actually checks out if you go through all his fights, but if you go back up here, you could say that he gets to use it, like he's able to use it here this first time, because before the fight, he cast that hand sign, which gives him access to one charge, so to speak, and now he uses it, and so if he wants to use it again, then he'll have to actually use the hand signs, which is why over here, you see he doesn't darken his hand over here. He also dodges out of the way instead of, you know, just darkening his head, which maybe means that he has to like let it recharge or use the hand signs to get another seal. That would affect our perception of his durability, I think. Let's see. I think Noodle suggests that because he has 5 lives. It's possible. It didn't seem that way to me. He wasn't saying that like Kakuzu could get killed or damaged by it and then recover. He was saying that like he could just negate it entirely. And I think he was using that to suggest that like if Jubito can take an attack like that, if Jubito can be damaged by a paper bomb, which this is what he was referring to, which we'll talk about in a second, but I think that's his argument, right? If Jubito is damaged by a paper bomb, then it's not an anti-feat for Kakuzu to protect himself, because paper bombs are just that impressive, that scary, right? If I want to explain the Kakuzu part with the paper bomb, it would be this. The explosion, blindfolds, and he knows Shikamaru's jutsus. Kakuzu in that case used that to his advantage. Hidan screams at it, and Kakuzu says his sentence to me, it's the misdirection. Yeah, I think that's a valid interpretation. I think Hidan is... You could definitely look at that and be like, Hidan is just telling Kakuzu to watch out, right? I also think it would be valid to be like, he just had an explosion that was strong enough to damage the metal on his cable. He doesn't see Kakuzu. He doesn't know what his status is, and then he's like, Kakuzu, like, where are you? What's going on? Like, he's calling out to him to check in on him, rather than to say, hey, look out, there's another attack coming in. I think your interpretation is a good one. I just think that the way that I see it is that he's responding to this, rather than talking about like what's going to happen next. But those two things aren't like mutually exclusive, right? They can both exist at the same time. Notice his arm missing. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a nice detail, is that even from like right here, you can see that Kishimoto never draws his arm, like his right arm again. It's not visible here, it's not visible here. Like, he's very careful to have established that beforehand. So I think that's a great detail, and it's good that you pointed that out. Yep. And then he needed hand sign only to full body. Yeah, I think that's probably the best interpretation, is that he can just sort of like Obito's Kamui, right? Like, Obito's Kamui can exist in this passive state where it's always like automatically activating to let parts of his body phase through things, but he can also like activate it in a larger sense to transport his entire body into the Kamui dimension, right? So there's a couple of different ways you can look at it, but I think that that makes sense, right? He just uses the sign for a big version of it. So, if you've listened to the parrot versus swag debate in particular, I think it these terms come up in other debates too. I'm trying to remember exactly which ones, but basically you'll hear terms. I'm sure that if you've done any like amount of power scaling or listen to any of these debates, you'll hear terms like oh, it suggests it's automatic as well. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that would fit, because like when he's up against Raido and he dodges the ebony blade, it seems to just kind of happen automatically. It's like super quick. He obviously doesn't need to do a hand sign for that, right? But yeah. So I'm sure you'll have heard terms like multi-continental or planetary, universal, city block level, stuff like that. And very briefly, it's just a tiering system that power scalers use to try and establish like what minimum level of power a character can output. So if you're saying that like a character has a planetary Bijuu bomb, for example, then you're saying, okay, let's agree on a planet of a specific size, let's say the size of the Earth. If a character can blow up something that's the size of the Earth and like the same composition as the Earth, well then they're planetary, right? Like that's for destructive capability feats. It's just saying like that's how much stuff they can break, essentially. Obviously destructive capability and AP, attack potential, are different. So I think we talked about this before, that like Sasori doesn't have any great destructive capability feats, like he's not blowing apart continents or whatever, but he might, in theory, be able to kill Kaguya with a poison if his poison is just that powerful. So he doesn't need to be able to like destroy a planet to kill somebody who can destroy planets, as long as he has like an attack potency or attack potential thing that lets him destroy that person, if that makes any sense. So you can have something that is really, really good against people who are very strong, and then really, really good against like terrain or environments or something like that. That's basically the gist of it. And during the parrot debate, he definitely said that the tailed beast bombs have been calculated to be multi-continental in power, which counterintuitively, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can blow up multiple continents, because like what even kind of continent are we talking about? It just means that they fit into a certain category, like a certain power level, with some agreed upon standard. But nobody here has, like nobody in this debate anyway, has given a power calc or power tier rating for what a paper bomb supposedly is, like how strong it supposedly is. So if the claim is being made here, the way that people tend to calculate like how powerful an explosion is in terms of its destructive capability is to look at the effect it has on the environment, like how big the explosion is, and also look at what gets destroyed around the area. Like you'll remember when they were talking about Yugito blowing up the stuff around her in her fight with her Bijuu bomb, or like Killer Bee blowing up stuff with his Bijuu bomb. You look at the environment, you look at the amount of damage that's being done, and you can say, okay, we can probably assume that this amount of power is behind these attacks. And that's how you get a power rating for things like that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of assumptions that get made there, but it gives you a vague number that you can then try to have a discussion about. So, what I want to do is I want to evaluate this claim that paper bombs hurt Jubito, and then I want to go from there and look at paper bombs elsewhere in the series and see if that makes any sense. So, starting at chapter 639, this is when Jubito, I don't think he's fully stabilized yet. I think he's just become the Juubi Jinchuuriki. Yeah, because later in this chapter he like gets all fat and confused all of a sudden. But we see him blast through Tobirama and Hashirama, and then he gets these paper bombs on him. Like these are the ones that are manually placed on him, or maybe they were inside Tobirama and they got stuck to him, whatever. They're single individual paper bombs, and then they explode, and then this happens. Now, as far as I can tell, I don't see Jubito actually getting wounded by this. I don't see that happening. I do see these little shreds flying away from him, and you could potentially argue that these little scales and protrusions over here, whatever these are, these growths, kind of look like this, and so maybe it is actually breaking the scales, in which case, okay, that would be something. But it doesn't blow his arms off, it doesn't blow his torso off, it doesn't blow like his leg off. Like, remember back in part 1 where Hashirama is fighting, I'll actually see if I can bring that up while I'm talking. Hiruzen is fighting Hashirama and Tobirama, and he places paper bombs on their legs and blows them up that way. So I think it's actually before he goes training with Jiraiya, right? Yeah, because they need to would have been like 135 or something like that, right? Because this happens before they go search for Tsunade. So let's bring that up because that's another good example of a paper bomb usage as well. I think it would have been a little before this. Oh yeah, well here's another one, right? Like, while we're at it, Naruto uses this paper bomb on Gaara. Let's save this for later. What a beautiful moment in the series. I love that, like, this is this super serious moment where he's like fighting for his life against this monster that's filled with hatred, and his blood is boiling, and like his would-be girlfriend is dying, and his best friend is like wounded. And what does Naruto do? He shoves a kunai up his ass. It's great. But like, so keep this in mind for later. Like, this is Gaara's partial transformation. He's not even in his full transformation yet. He's not even like in his full Biju transformation. I just repeated myself, but whatever. Naruto puts the kunai here. It's right in his vulnerable point. And this is the size of the explosion. Look at the amount of damage that's done to the tree, right? It doesn't like blow the tree in half. It doesn't sever the limb of the tree. And what does it do to Gaara? It deactivates this, it like damages the sand on like half of his body. Let's look at this, right? He managed to target that letter bomb right at my weakest spot under my tail. So I can't absorb all the impact. So and look, here's the cavitation in the tree, right? It doesn't have a very large explosion radius. And granted that a lot of the energy was going directly into Gaara, but the stuff that's radiating outwards doesn't even break this tree in half. So that's worth noting, I think. And then let's go and see if we can find the the what is it, Sennen Goroshi, something like that, the 1,000 Years of Pain. Really is something that I wish. I mean, like, they brought back the harem jutsu for the Kaguya fight. I don't know why they didn't bring that one back. Can you imagine him doing that to Kaguya and winning the fight that way? Maybe that would have been a little too much. So gonna look a little bit more to see if I can find that Hashirama and Tobirama thing. This is another instance of like multiple climactic fights happening at the same time. At least with this one, it's like not quite as egregious as during the war. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Red Letter Media and Plinkett and the reviews that he does of the Star Wars movies, but he had a thing that he called the ending multiplication effect, where like by the end of the first Star Wars movie, I think I might be going back too far, I don't know. Oh, here we go. So not far enough, actually. It's pretty far into the fight. He was talking about how, like, in the first Star Wars movie, meaning episode 4, like the first one to come out, over the course of that movie, by the time you get to the end, there's like one thing happening, right? It's just the assault on the Death Star. Everybody's focus is just on that one thing. But then by the time you get to the prequel, there's like Jar Jar Binks is fighting with Naboo on the ground, and then there's I don't know, Anakin is in his ship, like attacking the droid control ship or whatever. And there's basically 4 different stories happening simultaneously, and the tension is really hard to maintain because things keep swapping back and forth between these 4 stories. So you start to get invested in one, and then it immediately switches to the next, and it's like really hard to follow and keep track of. Now, the benefit of doing that, of course, is that you can create tension by leaving people hanging. Like, you get just far enough into one story, and then you switch over to the next one, and then everybody's always on the edge of their seat, like, ooh, what's the next one going to be? But for nitpicky people with me, with bad short-term memory, going through that stuff in retrospect can be sort of difficult because now you have to like try to remember how that weird 4-dimensional chess game is set up. I think finally, okay, so trying to remember, this is 120, and this is where we have our paper bomb feat, I believe. Please tell me it's actually in this chapter and not the next one or the previous one. Is this it? Okay, yeah. Here we go. Okay, so here is Hiruzen, right? Hiruzen is in a life or death battle against some of the strongest opponents in Shinobi history. Granted, we know, like, via retcon that these are, like, Tobirama and Hashirama are way, way less strong than they were in their prime. Like, that was changed in part 2. But still, like, Hiruzen obviously feels like Orochimaru is a threat, obviously feels like the 2 Hokage are a threat, and he wants to win this fight and save the village. Like, the stakes are high. And he chooses to use these paper bombs in this context. So that right there tells us something about the value that these tools have. So yes, even in high-level encounters, Kage-level encounters, the strongest encounters that we've seen in the series to date, these basic, like mainline, whatever mass-produced ninja tools are still being used by the best shinobi in the village. Maybe you think it's Kakashi, but like one of the best shinobi in the village. So that goes to show that these basic tools can still be extremely effective when used correctly. However, again, this is several hundred chapters before any of the like Juubi Jinchuuriki stuff. So just keep that in mind. And now let's look at the actual damage that was done. Notice that the damage that was done was just to the limbs, a little bit to the hands, to the legs. It didn't damage the other legs. It didn't vaporize their whole bodies. It didn't hit Orochimaru. It didn't even make a dent in the roof. So now we're starting to get a sense of how strong, how damaging, how threatening these paper bombs are. They apply a great degree of force directly to whatever they're in physical contact with. But beyond that, they don't have a huge amount of utility. They don't like vaporize everything in the vicinity. So, oh, sorry, I missed a question. Let me go. Question for you. There's a statement that Kakuzu is one of the deadliest Akatsuki members. What do you think about it? And then Alhert says, I think it refers to killing ability by convenient means. Yeah, so that's a good question. I've heard that come up in, I think the parrot, no, it was the Noodles versus Swag debate where Noodles used, it's actually kind of a creative argument. He said, Kakuzu is one of the deadliest members, which would put him in the top 50%. If you, Swag, agree that Deidara is in the bottom 50%, then Kakuzu is more deadly than Deidara, and Deidara one-shot the Three Tails, and so Kakuzu should be able to also one-shot a Biju, like the Biju, I think is what he said. Maybe he just said the Three Tails. But basically he was using that to scale Kakuzu over the Three Tails, over Isobu, which is a pretty creative chain of logic, I have to admit. But the problem with that is that, again, like Alhert is kind of saying, deadliest is open to interpretation. Like, we're not given a specific definition of what that means. And like we were talking about before, like, you could be the deadliest because you have an unblockable sword that will kill anything it hits, but you can only kill one person at a time. Or you could be the deadliest because you have a poison gas that is very easy to avoid, but if you manage to spread it over a large area where people are sleeping or something like that, it can kill lots and lots of people unawares when they're like outside of a combat situation. You could be deadly because you have bloodlust and you're just constantly like when Jugo goes into his like berserker mode, right? You're just killing everything in front of you. Or you could be deadly because you're like a perfect assassin who's undetectable and you always like finish your mission through stealth and through exaction, right? All of those things can make you deadly. It could be your body count, or it could be your combat proficiency, or it could be some tool that you have. At the end of the day, that statement doesn't necessarily give you any information for scaling. It also doesn't really tell you how you compare to anybody else, because if they're talking about Pain versus Kakuzu, both of those characters could be among the deadliest. Both of those characters could be top 5, top 3, top 2, depending on like what your opinion is. So it doesn't really help you out over the course of the conversation. I think what you guys, yeah, just kind of reading some of the stuff that you've said, I agree that look, Kakuzu is a bounty hunter, and he's been going on missions for a long time. I think on his own and with Hidan as well. If we go back to the Yugito thing, let me see. I think it's in what, 3.14. He's got a map, and let's look at the map that he's got out, because it's a little detail, but this is right after they kill Yukito. And is he holding the map then? No, it must have been in the previous one after the ritual. Okay, one sec. Okay. So here's after the fight. Hidan is looking at this map. He looks down. And look at the map here, right? Maybe you guys have seen this before, but he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you don't include Yukito in that, then that means recently they have collected 7 bounties together, because these are like the bounty hunter contracts, and then he goes to get Chiriku. So just within like recent times, within the recent span of this story, he's found and killed like 8 people with Hidan. Now Sasori, by comparison, or I don't know, who's another good one? Itachi, by comparison, right? Like, we don't really know what he's been up to exactly. But has he been going around doing all of these missions and like killing people on a daily basis, or just like constantly looking for bounties? This is kind of what Kakuzu does, right? That's his whole like his side hustle, I guess. And then managing the Akatsuki's finances, collecting bounties is kind of a big deal. He goes to that guy in the bathroom, and they seem to have like a long-standing relationship as well after getting Chiriku here. So you could just look at that and say that Kakuzu might have like the highest body count, and that's what makes him the most deadly Akatsuki member, or one of the most deadly Akatsuki members, right? Versus Itachi might be way, 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 way stronger than Kakuzu, which I think he is, right? I think he could defeat Kakuzu with no issues whatsoever. But how much time is he spending walking around the countryside just fucking murdering people and collecting bounties, right? So that was a long-winded explanation, but hopefully that made sense. Let me actually get to some comments here. Like, Kakuzu has tendrils that can pierce people's skin when he wants them to, and have snared them for most of their showings. Yeah, that's true. I'm kind of paraphrasing what you're saying, but yeah, like in the war, we see him just run up to people and rip their hearts out of their chests and like collect 5 of them over the course of like, I guess, a minute or so, right before he starts fighting Inoshikacho again. Can also be defined as skillful, which makes sense in relation to his knowledge and jutsu variety. Yep. Yeah, not to downplay his strengths at all. That is a valid reading. It's just sort of hard to get a precise reading, I guess, is my only objection. Why would Kakuzu have this prestigious statement in the Akatsuki? Why would it matter for the author to share it? Well, there's kind of 2 reasons. One would be, 2 that I can think of. I'm sure there's plenty more. But one would be to make him sound super scary. Like, hey, this is a bloodlusted, or rather a bloodthirsty, merciless killer. Like, you're not going to... Itachi is going to back up. Itachi is going to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't start a war. Like, hey, we might not want to, like, cause a big commotion. Let's back off and, like, reassess. Maybe Kakuzu would be like, no, this is my target. I'm getting it. I'm not leaving until I kill this guy, right? So that could be part of the reason. It could be that they just want to assert Kakuzu as being top tier. That would be a valid interpretation. But I do think there's other ways to look at it. That seeing being deadly, then Deidara doesn't make it to his AP can create the same effect as his DC. Yeah, exactly. So, like, I know I use the poison example a lot, but Deidara might be able to use a big bomb that could blow up an entire village and, like, kill a lot of low-level characters, but a high-level character could just resist the explosion or teleport away. Whereas if Sasori, like, touches that high-level character once with poison, could wind up killing him, but doesn't have anything in his arsenal that could cause an explosion on that of that magnitude. So which one is deadlier? A poison that kills everything it touches, but can only kill like 1 or 2 people at a time, or a massive explosion that can kill lots and lots of people at a time, but they have to be weak in order for that to work, if that makes sense. Why not Hidan for his hacks? Hidan's hacks is honestly simplistic. He has an immortality that makes him hard to kill in standard terms, but it's just high durability. Yeah, so I think that could potentially apply to Hidan in terms of, like, he also is somebody who is even more so than Kakuzu. He's obsessed with killing, right? Like, it's part of his religion, just slaughtering. So I think that could apply to him as well. But I think most people would also agree that Hidan on his own is not going to match Kakuzu's level of proficiency overall. So I think maybe we're kind of starting to get a picture. Maybe it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, right? To me, it just means he's one of the most dangerous Akatsuki member to encounter. Yeah, for sure. I think you can read it that way. Again, I don't have any problems whatsoever with people coming to interpretations like that. I only feel the need to dispute it or argue about it when it's in the context of a debate, or in the sense of, like, well, can we get like a more clear or precise answer? But statements in the data books, like, a lot of the time are totally open to interpretation. They're kind of vague. It's just like, when you really think, like, just take a step back for a second and think about all of the Akatsuki members and what they can do. Let's pretend that Zetsu just, like, doesn't get his Madara feat later in the series for a second. Let's just treat him like the two-tone Zetsu, like the aloe plant Zetsu. So we got Zetsu and Konan and Sasori and Hidan, and they don't have incredible, amazing, earth-shattering feats. Maybe Sasori does with the Iron Sand and all that, right? But they're strong fighters. They're strong, like, shinobi killers, but they're not like these monsters that are almost equivalent to Biju, that are capable of, like, you know, having Susanos blasting things and sealing anything that they touch and all that crazy shit, right? So those, 4 or 5 characters would be in the bottom tier. Maybe you put Deidara there as well. And then, so that's the bottom 50%. And then the upper 50% is like Itachi and Obito and Pain and and Kisame, right? And then if you want to put Kakuzu in that upper 50% as well and say, okay, those are the most deadly ones, and then everybody below is the least deadly ones, I think that would make sense. I think that would be totally fine. You could dispute it, you could shuffle them around a little bit, but there is definitely like a power cliff between a certain part of the Akatsuki where, like, the power just jumps up like a big margin, I think. Now that doesn't mean that just because you're more powerful that you would necessarily win a fight all the time. Like, there's more to it than that. But still, hopefully you know what I'm saying, right? Let me check something. They were also looking for Biju. Yep, that's true. They were going for the Biju. As far as I know, they only fought Yugito and got Maratabi. I know that they fought the Seven Tails in the anime. Chome, I think his name is, and Fu was the Jinchuuriki, right? But yeah, I think I might have asked you this last time, and then I think you said that we don't really actually get to see the fight happen. It just kind of happens off screen. So that's unfortunate. But yeah. Kakuzu have enough brute force in base to destroy Bone's chest. Do you have a Oh, are you talking about where he attacks Asuma, Kakuzu in Holidays? If that's the case, then yeah, he does. I would just say that, like, we should probably do some more looking into how strong Asuma's durability is, because the more we know about Asuma's durability, the stronger, or like the better context that we have for Kakuzu's feat there. I don't think he manages to break Kakashi's bones when he kicks him, right? I think Kakashi's basically fine as far as we can see, unless he has some unknown internal damage. Whereas it stated that his strength is noteworthy, I swear no one notes his strength for his hand-to-hand techniques. Because the fandom just claimed that. I can look in the... I really need to get those third databook scans into my scanner again. I apologize. I do know that the statement that he's talking about is that about him being the deadliest Akatsuki member. It is in the third databook for sure. I don't know why people say he's like a taijutsu specialist or he has like insane taijutsu feats. I don't think he does. I think, well, if he uses Diamond Morph, he can like generate a ton of damage, right? That's fair. Like, he blasts through that iron door, no problem. But we don't really see him engage in these extended taijutsu exchanges like Kimimaro versus fucking Lee or something like that. We don't see him do anything that crazy, because he's always using his Jungu and tentacles and stuff to like grab people from afar. Like even in this fight, he does this, but he doesn't manage to hit Shikamaru even while attacking from behind, while Shikamaru is actively fighting somebody else. Like, I don't know. I don't see him as being this legendary taijutsu expert or whatever. No, in the war arc when he takes a heart and base. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, he does. So I think that's with his tentacles, right? He can, or the threads, right? He can attach the threads to somebody's chest and then basically just like rip it out of them. So I think we even see that at some point in this fight when he's explaining. I'm all jumbled up over here. 1 second. When he explains how he survives this, we see that panel of him ripping the heart out of the guy's body. Of course, I think it's a ninja from the stone. We don't see specifically like how strong that individual is, but I think you guys probably know what I'm talking about, right? If I can find it in a second, I'll pull it up. If not, then... Oh, this is something, I guess I'll mention this while I'm here. It's going to come up later, but I wonder if you guys have an opinion about this. So, obviously, one thing that Noodle says at some point in the debate is that he thinks that the hearts have their own chakra, and maybe that they have their own souls or something like that, because chakra comes from the soul, and therefore, if they have chakra, they have souls. I have issues with that, but for the time being, look at what happens here, right? These 4 masks burst out of his chest, and then the shadow possession reaches its limit, blah, blah, blah. And then we see the 4 masks. This is the one that Kakashi hit. And they're looking around. This one's like raising his arms, right? And then we see this happen. This mask roars, and then it like falls down on the ground, and it looks up and it whimpers. And then like Hidan like looks at it like it's kind of pathetic or something, and then it dies. Do you think this means that the masks have like some semblance of consciousness? Like there's still a part of the person that's trapped inside Kakuzu? Or do you think it's more like the hearts are being used to empower this mask animal, and it becomes the heart of the mask animal, and that's what's whimpering? Because I think it is stated in the data book that one of the hearts that Kakuzu has was taken from a previous partner, like whoever his partner was before Hidan or something like that. So this really creepy narrative kind of emerges if that's the case, that Kakuzu had a previous partner, killed the partner, ripped his heart out and put it inside him and carried him around, and it was like in some way alive, in some way still conscious, even if only a little bit, and then now it's like dying and crying. It's really, really messed up. Obviously this is all headcanon, right? Like I don't know if that actually is what's happening here, but if it is, it just adds like an extra layer of like what's the term, sadism to and cold-bloodedness to Kakuzu. So I do kind of like that story, even if it's not true. Okay, let me check some comments here. No Diamond more for his taijutsu. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the weakness or the set. What's the term for it? Not setback. The trade-off of Diamond Morph not being able to move your limbs when you use it. So I do think that's probably why we don't see him do a whole lot of like crazy advanced taijutsu stuff, just because he's more about, I mean, like the name of Diamond Morph is also Domu, which means Earth Spear, or at least another name for it is Earth Spear. And when you think about it, like he's reinforcing himself and then powering up his strike and then delivering a massively powerful like thrust, essentially, which is what he does with his Diamond Morph punches. I like the idea that it's more like a spear than it is like I don't know, a set of nunchucks or something, that it's specifically designed to make these like very powerful singular attacks, as opposed to like it's supposed to be used in like these long drawn out combos or something. It could be both, I guess, but you know, without his Diamond Morph he destroyed the wall where Shikamaru was, made Kakashi flying during gigantic cheese. Yeah, I mean, like, let's look at when he kicks Kakashi real quick. So keep in mind, like, I'm not trying to nitpick what you're saying. I just want to, you know, provide some context. This is the tree, and at this point, Kakashi's used Raikiri, and we can see actually. Let's just go back one second. So when what's his name? Choji uses human juggernaut or spiked meatball, whatever it's called, and he creates this crater in the ground, which is a nice little visual transition here, right? Like, I like it when Kishimoto does stuff like this. He implies that the crater is going to be created here, and then visually draws you into this crater, and now you're at the bottom of the crater. Like, that's such a cool little visual trick. But anyway, going back to the Kakashi thing, now there's a crater in the ground. You can see the rocks and fragments are in front of Kakuzu over there. He's steaming, and then Kakashi comes up from behind him, and you can see the tree behind him is already splintered. So I used to think that it was the force of the Raikiri that was causing the shockwave, but I don't know if that really makes sense. Maybe it's doing some damage to the tree, but it's probably Choji, right? It's probably his human juggernaut with all the spikes and everything that are damaging the tree. Now, here's the damage to the tree. You can see some of the bark is peeling off. It's really just the outer layer, though. You can see, like, the texture and the shading and the coloring of the inner layer is different. So it's, I guess, like, more exposed. But not really all that much damage has been done. And then, when Kakashi's dashing forward, Kakuzu kicks him. And he kicks him off to the side a little bit. Although, this is weird. I wonder... No, it's the same tree, because here's the damage to the ground. And he's kicking him. I think what's happening here is he's kicking him into the hole that Choji already created, although it's not a very deep hole. And then when that happens, it causes the tree to splinter and break apart and then fall over, right? It falls over here. So it's not like he's kicking him. Like Noodle said at one point that he kicked him through a whole forest. That's not what happened. He kicked him into the tree, and then it broke through the tree. And then look, like there's still... Like the tree trunk is like right there behind him, right? So I guess he's here. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know where specifically he wound up. I guess if Kakuzu is facing this way and kicked him that way. Oh no, I guess, you know what? I think he probably did. He kicked him off screen, right? Because here's the tree that's breaking and falling down. All the particles are falling down. So he must have kicked him this way and actually kicked him through the whole fucking tree. So yeah, props to Kakuzu there. That's pretty impressive. Okay. Catching up on comments. Yes, they have their own chakra. That can be argued since the hearts are autonomous, so that they can have their own consciousness. Yep, consciousness. I think I agree with that. I think the only thing I was trying to figure out before is like, if in order to make chakra, right, you have to have stamina, and stamina is a combination of mental and physical energies, mental/spiritual. So for the for the hearts to have their own chakra, they would need to have mental and physical energy to then make into chakra, and then the chakra would then empower them to go do stuff. Alternatively, Kakuzu could just store the hearts, and then he could like give them his own chakra, and the chakra that they possess could be like, how can I say this, like, so if he absorbs somebody's heart that has like fire nature or lightning nature, and then he sends chakra through that heart, then it would be able to use lightning attacks. But ultimately, it's like Kakuzu is using his own stamina to like manufacture the chakra and then gives it to the mask, if that makes sense. In the same way that like what's her name, Chiyo, Granny Chiyo, says that the Kazekage puppet that Sasori uses has Kazekage chakra in it. So and that's what lets him use the iron sand. So it could be that like the Kazekage puppet just has like a battery reserve of chakra in it, and Sasori just uses that up when he fights. Or it could be that like, okay, the genetic information in the puppet is like the chakra nature of the puppet lets it use the iron sand, and Sasori can just give it chakra in order to empower it. And then it uses it like with its own chakra nature. I don't know if it's ever explained explicitly. I think both are interesting interpretations. Okay. Not the Raikiri, it's Choji. Oh yeah, I agree. I think he was the one who did the damage to it. That's not how it works. Kakashi explains it later after the fire style. Kakuzu mixed his own chakra with the hearts of the people he killed in order to control Yuzum. Yeah, I agree. Were you saying that that's why there's a theory he would be immune to most genjutsus? Interesting. Because you think that like the consciousness of the other people is going to be in those other hearts, and so like even if Kakuzu gets genjutsu, the other hearts will potentially like not be affected. That would make sense. That'd be cool actually. I like that. You said that's not how it works. Was that in reference to the my like speculating about the hearts having their own chakra or something? Yeah, let me know if I got something wrong there. I was kind of rambling a little bit. One sec. I know it was brought up at one point, the idea that Kakuzu is immune to genjutsu because he detected a genjutsu in the novels, but that's not what happened. I can get into that if you'd like me to go over it, but it's not really what happened. Oh, they would wake him up. I guess that would just require that. So interesting. So do you think that the masks can like? I always kind of saw the masks as like puppets that are essentially just doing what Kakuzu says, and he's like remote controlling them. Do you think that they're able to interact with him or give him feedback on that level to be able to actually like wake him out of the genjutsu? That'd be interesting. It's not wrong, but rather incomplete. Okay, yeah. See, I really like that feedback because ultimately, like, I'm never going to pretend to get everything right. Gonna make a lot of mistakes inevitably, and so anytime you think that there's an alternate interpretation or if I'm missing something, please let me know. More than happy to talk about it. Might not always agree, and that's never personal. I think the Sensor Genjutsu was casted by 20 Shinobi. Yes, because when Kakuzu died to Hidan, the heart still helped him. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, the two hearts, like, rushed back into his body. That's a good point. I think intuitively I would have looked at that and been like, they're just, like, maybe they have a function that lets them kind of recall automatically. Like, the Jiangu or whatever just pulls them all back in, or Kakuzu was able to pull them back in before he fully died or whatnot. Like, put it this way, right? If Kakuzu's 4 not main hearts, like the 4 animal mask hearts, are out on the battlefield, and Kakuzu is like 10 miles away, and somebody just kills Kakuzu, and he has those hearts are just like no longer with him, do you think that they would start running around and like be free and like go live their best lives, or do you think they would automatically, like almost like a Bancho Tenin, like they would be gravitationally sucked back to Kakuzu and just like zoom over to him like automatically? Or do you think it would be more like a dog that just heard its owner whistle and it's like, okay, shit, I gotta go back home, right? And they just like, they are sort of autonomous, but now their programming kicks in and they're like physically running back themselves as opposed to being like pulled in with an energy, if that makes sense. So be curious what you think about that. Yeah, I do agree they're autonomous, and I think that is explicitly stated in the 3rd data book as well. They detected Kakuzu in a way was missing, had trouble. Yeah, I kind of like that. I like the idea that he has these animal familiars. I'm not sure if I agree 100%, but my lack of agreement is more about lack of available information from my perspective, and I do kind of like the picture that's emerging of these things basically almost being like, I don't know if you played Diablo, like the recent Diablo games, but if you're like a necromancer, you can summon like little familiars to follow you around and attack and like do things for you. Could be something like that, right, where they do have some kind of rudimentary sense of loyalty, and that would kind of be in line with one of them like whimpering as it dies. It's so sad. They linked to his chakra network so they would know that something's going on. Yeah, I think it's very possible. Yep. Okay. So, with that all being said, it's fun to talk about this stuff. My number one gripe with the debates, like, very rarely am I annoyed at people getting something wrong, because whatever, like, you can always look it up, you can always correct it later, it's not a big deal. The thing that really annoys me is just like when people are like, no, you can't talk about that, or no, they just like, I don't know, shut down the conversation and don't want to even talk about it. Like in the Swag versus Noodles debate, I think it was that like Swag was talking about how the Shinra Tensei repels everything in creation, and like or repels on ninjutsu, and the truth-seeking orbs are ninjutsu, and so if the two of those things clashed, like what would happen. And like, isn't that kind of an interesting topic? Like, we could actually talk about it together, right? Like, what happens if two jutsu with mutually exclusive properties interact with one another? And Noodles was just like, well, it's a contradiction, so you can't talk about it. Like, it's a contradiction, so you can't use it in an argument. Like, let's move on. It's just, I get for the point of a debate, like, you don't want to give your opponent any extra points or whatever, but that could have been a really interesting discussion. It might have just been all headcanon, it might have been just all speculation, but you get to like look at the rules of the universe and look at what information you have and come to some kind of an interesting interpretation. And isn't that like what the fun is? Like, isn't it kind of fun? Like, even if we can't scientifically prove that Kakuzu's pets, quote unquote, will do this, now we've spent some time like trying to get to know them a bit better, and we know a little bit more about Kakuzu and his abilities. I think I've definitely learned something. It's just more fun to approach it this way, I guess. I think it's off talking to him. Maybe it could be, but it's been a while. I'd have to go back and listen to it, but it definitely felt to me like there was just a lack of an interest in exploring the. Well, how can I say this? Swag trying to establish that the Shinra Tensei nullifies all ninjutsu was definitely like a main thing. Like, he needed that point, I think, or he wanted to drive that point home because it was part of his scaling. Now, for the record, I disagree. I don't think that the Shinra Tensei just automatically nullifies and destroys all jutsu. I think it just pushes them back, and it cancels them out through like momentum or through force by pushing them away. So I'm not saying I think his point was perfect, but I do think that he was, making a point that was directly relevant and on topic. And to the best of my memory, it felt like Noodles was just trying to like not deal with it at all. So benefit of the doubt, maybe he did feel that it was off topic, and that's fine. That's a better interpretation than the one I had. But not to pick on Noodles too much, just like something that I feel like I encounter quite a bit in listening to people talk about Naruto sometimes or just about things in general, it can be outside of the fandom, is just like, I already have an idea in my head. I already like my idea. I don't really care what anybody else thinks or has to say, and I'm not interested in talking about it. So I'll show up, I'll say my piece, and then I'll leave. And like, fine, okay, if you got things to do, just go. But oftentimes it's just kind of sad because there's usually a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about, and I don't get like the hostility, I don't get the apathy when talking about like a manga of all things, you know what I mean? Look at the Kakashi thing before the fireside with the black background. Okay, let me go back. Let's take a look. You mean this thing over here? Say with a black background. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. So here's wind style pressure damage. So, is it this thing over here? These two, they're strong, especially the one with the mask. One normally can't perform such high level jutsu unless they're compatible with the one's own chakra natures, right? And yet, he's already displayed earth, wind, and lightning. Yep, that makes sense. My interpretation of what he's saying here is that Kakuzu is particularly strong and scary because he's doing something that normally, like normal shinobi, like just can't do, right? He's already used multiple chakra natures and all that. And then he does the fire style. Yeah, the fire style too, right? So we've seen him use like what, 4 different affinities right there. The only thing that we haven't seen him use is water, and I think that's why people think that the first mask that Kakashi killed was probably the water mask. It's not that moment, damn. sorry, am I scrolling too fast? Let me know if I missed something. One sec. One of these. Okay, so let's see. He says, however, it seems I merely took down one of the monsters that emerged from his body. I suspect it died in his place. So, to be fair to what you were saying before, Kakashi is describing these things as monsters. So maybe we're supposed to be like, these literally are just like almost autonomous creatures. I think I previously was looking at this as just like a puppet that Kakuzu was controlling remotely, but no, I think it makes more sense that they actually are their own autonomous, like fully autonomous creatures. And it died in his place, right? He's describing this as if it's a separate entity. It was as if the arm he detached from himself. Okay, you know what? I think it's probably like this, right? When Kakuzu detaches his arm and sends it underground like this, it's not a part of a mask at that point, right? It's literally just like on its own recognizance, so to speak. Or no, that's not the right way to put it. I think in this situation, you could probably argue that Kakuzu is just using it like a puppet, because it's just like tendrils in the heart itself. But then he has these masks, and when he puts the heart into the mask, it then becomes this creature, and the creature has the elemental affinity that the shinobi who this heart belongs to previously had, something like that. It was as if the arm he detached from himself possessed its own beating heart. Oh, no, I was wrong. It allowed it to move autonomously. Okay, so yeah, basically the hearts, as long as they're in like a Jungu tentacle mask, they can just do whatever they want. And then I guess they get empowered when they get go into the masks. Each of these monsters that emerged, not to mention the mask guy himself, all have separate hearts, right? And yet all of the hearts are his too. Cool. Okay. When Kakashi says, now it makes sense. Did I just read that? Sorry, I'm... Hopefully we're kind of on the same page. I might just be missing something. Right below when Kakashi says, now it makes sense. I'm looking. Destroyed his heart first. I should have killed him. Okay, suspect that each of those monsters that emerge, all the hearts too, which means start out with 5 heart fires. It's impossible. Okay. Below, okay. Each of these hearts belongs to a shinobi that I battled and got the best of. Destroy one. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep. With your hearts, for example. Now it makes sense. He took in others' hearts along with their chakra natures, harbored in the Keiraku-kei, the chakra network, which is why he can perform so many changes in nature. I see. Okay, so I think we just had a different interpretation. When I first read this, I thought what Kakashi was saying was he took in the hearts of the other shinobi and the chakra natures, which are harbored in the Keiraku-kei, came with them. So in other words, he absorbed the hearts. The hearts had chakra natures because chakra natures hang out in the Keiraku-kei. So when Kakuzu got them, he got these hearts that were already full of the chakra nature within their own chakra network. And so then he pushes chakra into the hearts and into the heart's chakra network, and the chakra takes on the nature of the hearts themselves. I think you were saying that your interpretation is that the hearts become part of Kakuzu's chakra nature or chakra network. And so as long as he has a heart inside him with a given nature, then that nature is flowing through his whole network, and then he can just use that. I'm not, if that's, let me know if I got that wrong. The only contention I have with that is that if that were true, I would think he himself would be able to use all of the elements that his masks are using, right? So he should be able to use Searing Migraine, or at least like a fire jutsu or a water wall or something like that. But we don't see him use any nature transformations except for Earth Spear. Which is why I thought that the what do you call it? The chakra networks are like unique to the hearts of the masks. I hope that made some sense. It's kind of complicated. But I appreciate that you pointed that out, because it's harbored in the Keiraku-kei. Yeah, I think that's where we might disagree, is about like whether that refers specifically to Kakuzu's whole chakra network or just like the chakra network of the hearts themselves. They are linked to him. I will absolutely agree with you on that one. Yeah. But I guess what I'm wondering is, like, if he has no other hearts other than his main heart, and he absorbs a fire heart, can he now just like cast fire jutsu whenever he wants because he has fire in his network? Or can he just like happen to control this heart, and then the heart is the thing that's doing the fire stuff. Like he himself in his own main body, does he now have access to fire transformation, or does he just control the heart by giving it his chakra, and then the heart can do the fire transformation? I definitely get where you're coming from, though. And honestly, I think it's fine if that's open to interpretation. You know what I mean? It would be cool. Although I guess this is the other thing that we could talk about, is how Kakuzu, like, I'm sure you know, I think we talked about it previously, that part of his design was like inspired by Gundam. So maybe you could look at that and be like, I don't know anything about Gundam, to be honest. But I wonder if we were to look at the Gundam he was inspired by, could we get some information? Like, does that Gundam have 5 different types of attacks that it can use whenever it wants, or something? Or like, does it have detachable parts that can move autonomously, like turrets or something? Excuse me. Sorry. It's the heart of someone to a stalker nature plus stalker network in order to use them. Yep. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from there. Yeah, I appreciate you pointing it out too. Just seeing if I missed anything. Really cool design. I have to reiterate that. Okay, so I just got caught up reading this fight. I love this fight, man. It's so good. Shikamaru as well, I think is somewhat underrated in terms of his actual combat proficiency. Like, everybody just thinks of him as the genius, like, smart kid, and he is, obviously, but also, you know, he is very competent in combat as well. So, just taking a brief detour back towards the paper bomb land, what we kind of established previously, or what hopefully I've established, is that even the paper bombs are useful tools that are used even by top level shinobi in high stakes battles, at least in part 1. And yet, if you actually examine the damage that's done, it's not all that significant, right? Especially with the knowledge that we have from part 2. The fact that those paper bombs that Hiruzen used only did that amount of damage to those Edo Tensei isn't a really great feat for the paper bombs, right? When you compare them to like Bijou bombs or bombs from Deidara's explosions, right? They're obviously on a completely different level. Here's chapter 46, and this is in the Forest of Death. This is during the Chunin exams, and Sasuke is fighting this, I think he's a sound ninja, or no, he's not from sound. Where is he from? He's fighting this guy, and this ninja uses a... Interesting that the kunai looks kind of warped there. That's interesting. But uses a letter bomb on this tree, and it like has a pretty small explosion radius, right? Like, it pushes Sasuke... Sorry, let me rephrase. It's right in Sasuke's goddamn face. It's right in his face, and it blows up the tree, and it pushes him down to the ground, and it hurts him, but it doesn't kill him. So Sasuke's what, like somewhere between 12 and 14 at this time? These are just kids. Like, these are teenagers who are fighting in a forest, and they have access to these basic paper bomb, basic tools, and it doesn't kill him. It really doesn't seem to hurt him much at all. Granted, if you look at the design on the paper bombs themselves, it's not entirely clear like that this is necessarily the same paper bomb that's getting used here in chapter 639, right? The seal looks a little different, so you can argue that maybe these are different. Just something to keep that in mind, right? But now let's look at chapter 51. This is later in the Chunin exams in the Forest of Death, and the squirrel over here has a paper bomb put on him, and let's see what happens with Lee. Different seal again, like different tag. Lee manages to find him and go over to him right when he's about to explode, take it off, and he's actually holding it. He's holding the paper bomb while it's on fire, and he just tanks it. He just like absorbs it, while this little squirrel here also survives. Now, there's another example I haven't prepared. I could go try to look it up. It'll take a little while. Where Akamaru gets hit by a paper bomb while everybody's running towards Sasuke, and they lay an ambush. The Sound 4 lay an ambush for them, and it also like hurts Akamaru and hurts Kiba, but it doesn't kill them. And I guess like I'll just use one more example because it's directly relevant to like Kakuzu talk, right? And then we'll go back to talking about Jubito. In chapter, was it 310 when Yugito first no, it's a little further. 313 to 314, yeah. Okay. Let me just get this. 313. Okay. So look at what happens when Yukito draws them into a trap here, right? These paper bombs look like they're more similar to the ones used during the Jubito fight. They're not identical, but they look quite similar. So they have these like 4 radiating lines towards the seal in the center. Let's take a look. Yeah, so they're basically the same thing, right? 4 radiating lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then seals in the center. And they're right above Kakuzu's head and Hidan's head. And they like don't do any damage to them directly, right? Okay, so this perspective actually makes it look like they're, I don't know, 20 feet back or something like that, maybe a little more. They damage the arches above these structures, and they cause the rocks to crumble down. So they don't cause the rocks to fragment, or like to pulverize. They don't cause them to vaporize, and they don't do any damage to Hidan and Kakuzu, despite the fact that they are right there. So when we talk about Bichu bombs and stuff being multi-continental, what kind of rating should we give these paper bombs? What is the radius of this explosion? Is it even fair to call them city block level when this is the amount of damage that they're doing? Probably not, right? So paper bombs themselves are useful in that if you put one directly on someone's limbs, the concentrated amount of force that gets focused into the one point may be enough to damage them. But also, when that force is not focused on one place, it's distributed amongst a larger area, this is the maximum explosion radius. Like, this is the amount of energy that's getting released. Compared to some of the crazy shit later in the series, it's really just not that much. And I think that is important when we're talking about, like, how Kakuzu responds to them. Oh, sorry, I think I missed some comments. Let me catch up here. Might Guy to have a text linked to Gundam. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's why the theory of anti-genjutsu exists. Oh, from the anti-genjutsu stuff coming from the hearts. That makes sense. Not the same letter bomb, it seems, based on aesthetic. Yeah, I do want to allow for the possibility that the paper bombs have different amounts of chakra put into them. They're maybe manufactured by different people. Maybe the different villages have different versions of paper bombs that are different strength. Let's look at an example from the war. This is much earlier in the series. Here's a paper bomb that has a different... Actually, it looks like it has the same exact design on the one that Yugito used, right? It's got those... Well, maybe it's a little bit different because it has the 3 kind of lines and it doesn't have the schmear in the middle, but I think the kanji in the middle is the same. Let's see. See if we can zoom in a little bit and get a better look. Not that I know Japanese, really. So it looks like it's got this symbol on the left and then that. So let's take a quick look and see if we can... It's kind of hard to tell. Oh no, it does, because it's got like the box on the top and then it's got these 2 characters stacked and then this thing on the left with the accents coming up like that. So it does look like this one is the same as this one, which is used in, what is this, the 3rd war? Let's go back to the earlier in the Kakuzu fight. Hopefully it doesn't block me. One more. Don't block me. Okay, good. So let's see. Yeah, so I think it is the same, right? Like the designs around the side are a little harder to tell because you can see that like it's like warped. But I think the kanji is the same here. It's got this thing on the left with those 2 accents. It's got the box on the top and then the 2 stacked characters in the middle. So I think that it is, yeah, it's even clearer over here that it is the same. But not the same as this one, obviously. Like, this is very different. Not the same as, where he just says, I came. Good job. Yeah, not the same as the one that Lee pulls off the squirrel. So, fair to say that maybe these are, like, Genin level ones, that they're not as impressive. What I'm doing here also is just, like, trying to find what is the best paper bomb feat that we can find. Like, what is the most significant one? It's gonna be Conan's, probably. But, going back to the war, right? We got a couple here, I think. And this is good as a counter argument because this paper bomb seems to do a lot more than the one that we had just looked at, right? It's got a big radius. It's blasting these 3 back. It kills the dog, which is really sad. I'm sorry if that a bit triggering there. But it actually does kill the animal as opposed to the ones that were used on Akamaru and whatnot. And then if these are paper bombs as well, I'm not 100% sure that they are, but if they, well, they might actually not be, actually, because the fact that the cloud that's kind of coming up from around them is darker, sometimes that can indicate that that the source of the explosion and the material that's used in the explosion is different. So I guess you can't prove that. But if you were to say that this paper bomb was the same, like these are paper bombs as well, then you could say, okay, look at this crater. Like, this is a bigger feat, right? These are bigger explosions than these, for sure. But even so, does this strike you as being like a Jubito killing explosion? Does that make sense? All right. More like the same as Tobirama, Second War. Watch on Asuma's Blade or versus Hidan in the Forest. There's plenty. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, let's look at the Hidan feat as well. So I actually wanted to bring that up, so I appreciate you referencing that. Let's look at what happens. Yeah, look at all of these paper bombs. This seal is definitely different, right? I wonder if it's because it's like adhesive or something, but the kanji is definitely different. Keep going. A little further. Next page. Or next chapter, rather. Okay. So, it's funny. On the previous page, some of those kanji were definitely different. Here, it just kind of seems like a mess. Like, it's kind of hard to tell. There's like a bunch of different scribblings, which is fair. Sometimes you don't have the time to draw all the specific details. Here, though, it does look like we're seeing the same basic symbol in the middle. It's just like not fully drawn. But yeah, if we just like eyeball how many are on Hidan here, it's got to be like a couple dozen, right? Maybe 20 or so. And we're not even seeing, like, that's just in the front. There's more in the back. So let's look at what happens with Shikamaru here, right? He's standing right in front of Hidan. Yeah, so interesting that the kanji in the center is the same. It's just like kind of squished in the way that it's drawn. The only difference is that there are more lines. So you could potentially argue that maybe these look a lot like the lines that are used in like sealing and contract jutsu. And so maybe like more lines implies more chakra because there has to be a stronger seal on it in order to contain more chakra. So that's pure speculation, though. It could just be an aesthetic thing, or it could just be an inconsistency. I do kind of like looking for ways to explain things mechanically, though. So that does kind of seem to me like it would make sense, right? Like more lines indicates more pressure, or like a tighter seal at least. Now Shikamaru is right in front of this. It's right in his face, and Hidan is covered in these things. And it doesn't even reach him. Like, it doesn't even get to him. So, now let's look at what happens to Hidan himself. Now, keeping in mind, Hidan is not vaporized. He's not pulverized. His limbs are severed and broken, but he's not, like, torn into a massive... Like, okay, so there's blood everywhere, right? But he's not made into, like, a giant heap of just, like, pulpy... I don't want to get too graphic here, right? But it's not just like a big pulpy heap of blood and guts and everything like that. He's still combined into, or sorry, he still has individual body parts that are intact. That's what I'm trying to say. So, with that being said, I think, again, the picture is starting to emerge that putting paper bombs on people directly will drive a charge of energy into them that is very significant and can blow them up. But again, these are not like city block leveling individual paper bombs. So if somebody says like that paper bomb could kill Jubito, or that paper bomb could say kill an infinitely regenerating immortal dog that can't be killed, but maybe a paper bomb could do it. You should raise an eyebrow, right? Yeah, exactly. Maybe around 40 paper bombs on him, and it only does that. So when you look at Kakuzu walling up against a paper bomb, if we take a step back away from like the chaos and the competitive nature of a debate, I don't think like him protecting against a paper bomb is weird, any more than I think somebody trying to dodge like an attack from a kunai or a sword, even though they're like a high level ninja, is weird either. Because at the end of the day, especially early in the series before we get to like the Biju bombs blowing up huge masses of land and stuff, these are human beings. They're enhanced human beings. They have additional abilities. They have like shields. They have chakra cloaks and all that. But underneath all of that, they're still human. They're still people. I'm of the belief that like, even though Kakashi got kicked through that tree, if he were asleep and you like snuck up on him and like stabbed him with a scalpel or something, that he would still bleed. Even though the force behind that scalpel is a whole lot less than the force that was applied to him when he got kicked through the tree and he survived that. This is my like headcanon, if you want to call it that, but it just makes sense that chakra is being used to empower them, to enhance their abilities. Jutsu and stuff like that are being used to enhance their abilities, but at the end of the day, they're still human. So I think it just makes more sense and is more elegant and has better explanatory power to just say that Kakuzu in base would actually get hurt by a paper bomb. It's just like not weird to me at all. It feels consistent with the world and with what we see. And that he would need to harden his skin to defend against one as well. Or at least that he thinks it's wise, it's prudent, he thinks it's worth like potentially protecting himself. Like he might get hurt by it. I think that makes sense as well. As for this comment that like, well, of course he would, because paper bombs are so strong that they could even kill Jubito. Here's Jubito. He's got paper bombs all over him. Like we went over this, right? You could look at this and say that those things are fragments of his spikes. I don't know if I would agree with that, because there's a lot of fragments of stuff that's already in the air. Like, look, there's one over here, there's one over here. Like, there's already a bunch of shit flying in the air, and now we have the paper bombs. There's shit coming off of Tobirama and Hashirama, like his wood particles and stuff like that. There's shit falling off of Hashirama here. So I don't know if I would agree with that. And then this happens, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Tandem explosive tags. So these have that same seal, that explosion seal that we saw before, but they're arranged in like groups of 5, and then they summon more over and over and over again. And this is a this is a pretty terrifying sight. This is obviously like a major attack. I think I was just watching somebody's video on this. I want to give them credit. I can't remember their name. It might have been Sage of Thick Calves, I think, who pointed out that this thing over here that's getting destroyed is like a Gracious Deity Gate that Hashirama summoned, and it's just getting like demolished. And the 10 Tails clones are getting thrown aside, right? This is actually an extremely terrifying and extremely damaging attack. And then look what happens to Obito. He's fine. He actually looks more badass than he did previously. So all of this did nothing to Obito. I don't see how or why we should come to the conclusion that this did anything to Obito when all of this did not. And if that's the case, then that means that paper bombs aren't these magical, like, universe-defying, world rule-breaking things that just kill anybody that they're applied to. They are ninja tools. They follow the same rules as any other ninja tool. They can be useful. They can be deadly when applied to the right situations, but they have their limitations, and they have their specific context in which you need to use them to have them be effective. If used on Kakuzu when he has his guard down, when he's not armored up or anything like that, I think they absolutely could harm him. I don't think he's going to die to one. But I think we wind up giving him more credit by saying, yeah, he's smart enough to know what could potentially hurt him and to take appropriate measures like using Diamond Morph in order to defend against that. That to me also feels like more respectful to Kakuzu than just saying, well, like, Oh, I don't know. The paper bomb can hurt Jubito, so fuck it. Anyway. Let me catch up on some comments here. Sasuke his paper bomb versus Itachi Susanoo. Oh, interesting. Did Sasuke use a paper bomb on Itachi Susanoo? I don't remember that. Let me go check that. Would that be in like chapter 390 or 490? Been a while since I've read that fight. 390. Okay, so Susanoo's coming up. I appreciate the references, by the way. Very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, you know, the funny thing too is that like I was trying to do research on this before, and there's like nothing. There's really nothing about explosive tags. Like this is the entire wiki entry, and these are the entries as well. A Narutoversary is a Naruto. I always say that wrong. Narutoversity. If you search for like explosive tags, or paper bombs, there's really not a lot of information on them. You can kind of go through here and you can see they're referenced in some of these, but they're very, very short blurbs. I have one of the fan books, and there's like a single sentence in the fan books about it. It's really hard to find official information on these things, because I think it's basically like, yeah, we're also not going to give you a fucking like page long Wikipedia entry on what a sword is, because everybody knows what a sword is. Like this is basically just a little grenade without the shrapnel. And we're never, like, I guess Kishimoto or whoever figured that we didn't need more of an in-depth explanation than that. So this is so funny. I love this thing. I love that the Kishimoto does find like ways to put in like moments of levity. This is a battle where everybody is essentially going to lose their free will and the world is going to end, but he puts stuff like that. It's just so fucking funny. Poor Obito. So yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to look at the this thing with the Susanoo that you suggested. This is cool too. Okay, it would be probably in the next chapter, right? Because okay, here we go. So Orochimaru gets sealed away. No longer maintaining Sharingan. Your eyes are mine. Oh yeah, for people asking about like, how do we know Itachi's actually blind? How do we know Itachi's actually blind when he uses his ocular jutsu? How would we know? How could we possibly? Okay, I'll stop. Sorry. Anyway, okay. Oh yeah, here we go. So takes the kunai out. Kunai has 2 paper bombs attached to them. He lights them on fire. I guess that like sets the timer, right? Throws them directly at him. Okay, so this is 2 paper bombs, and it does generate a pretty large explosion. Like you can see, like this is the Susanoo chakra behind it, right? So, I mean, Sasuke thinks that there's a possibility that this might actually hurt him. I don't know, maybe you could argue that he's being desperate. I don't think he's that panicked at that point. But maybe, well, maybe he is. So you could argue that Sasuke is just flailing around. But I mean, like, why is he even carrying these things with him, right? So here's a way to look at this. Sasuke is obviously like very skilled, very talented, very experienced. He's been training specifically for this fight basically his whole life, and for him to just like stock these things for no reason, to like not know that if they're effective or not, doesn't really make much sense. It would be sort of out of character for him. So I think this lends credence to the idea that yet basic humans in their basic state can just get hurt by these, because at the end of the day, like, they're human beings and they're getting hit with explosions. Like, that all makes sense, right? But of course, what does Itachi do? Yaramir. And it's not getting through that, that's for sure. I know some people think the Yaramir can block literally anything. I don't agree with that, but yeah, it was never going to fall to a paper bomb. Oh, here's a bunch more. Look at this. So now he uses the scroll to summon a whole bunch of them. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 that we see, and they're all lit, and they're all thrown. And here, again, like, we do see that they're generating a large explosion. Probably the largest that we've seen outside of the Jubito thing. But it doesn't get through. But I mean, like, think about that going up against Kakuzu, right? If Sasuke took all this out and like threw it at Kakuzu, I think Kakuzu would also wall up against it. It wouldn't hurt Jubito, but it would definitely hurt Hidan if it got attached to him or something. Yeah, so that is, excuse me, that is actually very helpful. I appreciate that. Madara catches the kunai with a paper bomb. Does that mean he cannot tank it? Those kind of arguments are dumb because it applies to basic characters, but when applied to a loved one, it's another argument. Yeah. Same size it seems as two. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's take another look. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see because, like, here it kind of explodes at some point in the distance. And you don't really see where it actually, like, starts, so to speak. But, oh yeah, so I think the explosion is kind of actually continuing further back. But then again, like, to your point, if the kunai hits the Yaramir and then all of the papers bombs kind of go forward, like, obviously they'll still have inertia and momentum or whatever, and they're going to keep moving forward, and they all basically explode at the same point. It looks like maybe what's happening is that all of the energy from all these paper bombs are kind of it's like multiple shape charges all detonating on the same point. And I think what's his name, Sasuke was hoping that it would crack through the Yaramir or something like that. But also, they're not standing very far apart, and the explosion doesn't come back and hurt Sasuke. So it's pretty small. These are focused, shaped explosions that are meant to be used to deliver a lot of kinetic energy to a small location, for the most part, right? Madara catches the kunai with a paper bomb. Yeah, doesn't he? I think that's in the anime, right? Where like somebody throws a kunai with a paper bomb at him, he just catches it, and then he grabs the paper bomb and like attaches it to somebody and then kicks him away, which is such a cold maneuver. Like, I love that scene so much. I want to be careful about what I say because I'm on record. But part of me wants to say that, like, if Madara took that explosive tag and like put it on his neck, it would blow his head off. Because if he's not molding chakra, meaning, sorry, that he would like blow his head off of his neck, not he would like vaporize his head. It would just like, cause a wound in his neck. Because if he's not molding chakra, if he's not got his Susanoo out, if he's not doing anything defensive, he is still a human being at the end of the day. And I think that could potentially hurt him. The problem, though, starts to come into effect where, like, he has Hashirama cells, and then he is, he does have infinite stamina, so he's probably just, like, constantly generating chakra, to the point where I think it probably literally wouldn't do anything to him. Like realistically, in the middle of combat, if you ran up and stuck 100 onto his body, it might not do anything to him at all. But part of me wants to think that it would, because that would mean that, he's still human under all that, and it's really the chakra and the jutsu that are giving him the durability. So I don't know for sure, though. I'd have to think about it some more. But then again, like, when he regains his human body, he is pierced by magnetic sand. Granted, it does have chakra in it, so it's that's not the same. I can't draw a parallel between those two things. Yeah, with Hashi cells, like, the Hashi cells definitely changes things. And also, once he gets Sage mode, like, then no. Like, he could just, like, walk through a rainstorm. He could just, like, swim around in Conan's ocean of paper bombs, when he's got Sage mode, probably. But, I mean, like, think of it this way, right? Obito, obviously, he doesn't have the Rinnegan at this point. But Obito is still extremely strong. And we have to assume that he still has the ability to do stuff like his bomb blast dance. Like, he just has those jutsu. He has that latent strength. He's just not pulling it out yet. Maybe you could dispute that. Maybe you could say that the Rinnegan gives him a power boost. But at any rate, he's, obviously still very strong. We could talk about what makes him so strong. But what happens here? Conan mixes in all of these paper bombs, right? And they do have the same sigil. Or the same kanji. So it gets sucked in onto him. And he loses an arm, and his mask is shattered, and he's like bleeding, and his clothing is torn. Now he has Hashirama cells in that arm, if I'm remembering correctly. So although it might just be like the white Zetsu arm that's grafted to him, so maybe the durability is different. But still, this is a character that most of us would agree is a top tier Akatsuki member. Some people say is stronger than Pain, and yet he got hit with, I don't know, like 8 of them or so. Actually, it's really hard to tell exactly how many. I don't think we see, but let's see. Can we actually see how many he got stuck with? No, we just know that some are mixed up in there. Right. So his baseline durability does not let him just like negate paper bomb explosions. Right? And this is kind of why I put this in the in the thumbnail for the video today, because he, as a human being who is chakra enhanced but still human, is still capable of getting damaged by grenades. Like, he doesn't lose all of his limbs, he isn't vaporized, he isn't like torn to shreds like poor Hidan was, but he does lose an arm, and he is wounded and bleeding and stuff. So yeah. Obito fraud alert. On the paper bombs, I think the kanji in the center is the same. I think it's just the stuff around is different. And if I remember correctly, the kanji in the center just says like explosion, although I might be getting that wrong. Right, so it looks like it's formatted a bit differently, but you can see it still has like the 4 tendrils on the bottom, and then it's got the character with the 2 spikes on the left. And then, like, anybody who knows Japanese is probably cringing as I say this, I'm sorry. But then on the right, it's got the box thing on the top and then the 2 stacked kanji down below. So I think it is the same. But, I mean, if you ask me to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, it doesn't have the tendrils or whatever, the like appendages. So if you ask me to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're literally the same, obviously I can't. Like, it could be that Konan... Well, okay, so here, let me give a counter to my own argument. That Konan is using these tags that she's made herself, I think. So, like, I seriously doubt that she went to, like, some factory that produces paper bombs, and she's like, yeah, Chief, I need 600 billion of these by next week. I got a big fight coming up. Just shove them in the water. I'll deal with them later, right? I think the implication is that she herself... puts her own chakra into the leaves of paper, the sheaves of paper, and then she makes them explode. So she's like making her own paper bombs. If that's the case, then you could argue that these are not identical to the ones that like Genin in part 1 are using, or even that like Sasuke is using, because they're hers, and maybe she just has an ultra powerful chakra, and so the reason why Obito is damaged by this is because Konan is just cracked. Which I think is possibly the case, because, I mean, like, he does this. So, yeah. Okay, yeah. I cannot take Obito seriously ever. Each battle he loses a member. His arm, it's true. Yeah, doesn't he lose one when he fights, like, Fu and Torune before the Danzo fight? He's just, like... honestly, I really don't like Obito all that much. I have to say that the reveal of his character, where he drops the mask for the first time, and it's like the panel, that entire chapter is silent, right? Like, let's see if I can find it. That whole chapter, there's like no dialogue. All the characters just shut up, and it's just all these scenes from Obito's life. Did this? No, it's got to be a little further on then, right? Or previous. No, it's previous. And it's just so cool and chilling, and the fact that it happens... Actually, I think it was... Oh yeah, okay, so it's close. Yeah, I think it's this chapter, right? Right after he breaks the mask off. We've had this build up for like years and years, and then finally the mask cracks. And this chapter, won't go through the whole thing, but just to kind of skim through it, it's totally silent, right? Obito's perspective, there's Kakashi, Rin, there's the exams, everything he's going through, all the flashes of his life, everything. And I think this is before like the Gaiden story where we actually get no, Kakashi Gaiden is before this. But we see all this stuff. He loses, etc., etc. Everything he goes through. And then this, right? Like his death, Kakashi's eye, the shared eye, and the shock on everybody's faces. And then, is that you, Obito? This is the first thing, the first line of dialogue, the only line of dialogue that is stated in this entire thing. And obviously, like, this is me reading it into it too much, but it's not just like Kakashi's in disbelief, not just that like his friend is still alive, but also like, what have you become? Like, is this even you? Am I looking at something that just vaguely resembles my old friend, or is it actually you? This is, I don't like Obito. I just don't. But this whole sequence, like, I think is worth having him in just to get here. The reveal, all the emotion, like everything that's like Kakashi's going through. When Kakashi he has a panic attack, right? He stops being able to function for a second, and then what's his name? Guy has to try and like psych him up, right? He's freaking out. He's like having a meltdown. And I mean, okay, hang on a second. So, he uses Bomb Blast dances. He's actually using the Kamui to do that. That's interesting. Not that I'm trying to like make fun of mental illness. I want to be very, very clear about that. But what's amusing to me about this is that Kakashi has gone through so much over the course of his life. He's battle hardened. He's, had to resolve himself and be like kind of a cold-hearted shinobi, make sacrifices and all that. And after all this, like, this is shaking him. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find the right panel, but it's like Guy has to give him a pep talk to get him back in the fight. And I don't know. See, I got limited because I spoke too much. She created them throughout the years. Yeah, that makes sense, right? So they're probably like her own things. But they're her own paper bombs. To address your point, yeah, like, I like Toby a lot. I like the playful kind of banter that he has. I like the reveal that he's actually like this serious, like, kind of dark weirdo. Although I do miss having kind of a prankster goofster on the team. And I like the idea of somebody of Obito's like personality and character design basically being like, I don't want to have my own identity. I want to erase it, and I want to become somebody else. And the idea that like he only ever uses Kamui for the most part in terms of jutsu, and apart from like a genjutsu, up until he goes white mask mode, makes sense because Kamui is all about erasing himself. Like, Kamui is about reducing his presence. It's about taking parts of himself and putting it elsewhere, about being ethereal, about being a ghost. And so I love the fact that his signature ability is directly tied to his whole narrative and personality. And then you get to the war, and he's basically like Pain 2.0, but more bitter, and he's mad about Rin, and he didn't get over it, and he's just like, I don't know. He's like Pain, but less charismatic, which is weird because he was like pulling the strings behind the scenes to manipulate Pain and Itachi and like control the darkness in their hearts, but he himself has a far less compelling narrative and a far less compelling like motivation. Pain at least like wanted to achieve peace and just thought he was like giving the world tough love. Now obviously he was misguided, but he thought he was doing the right thing. Obito just like wants everything to end because he can't cope with reality. Now maybe you could argue that the fact that I have such strong feelings about him makes him a compelling villain, but I just find him kind of annoying. He's just kind of a brat and a jerk, and I don't know, like, I'm glad Naruto talked no jutsu with him, but I didn't care nearly the same way than when he connected with Pain. It felt like he was just going through the motions again, you know what I mean? I don't like Obito, but I admit the most hype moment for me was when Madara arrives and Naruto says, if that's the real Madara, then who is it behind the mask? Yeah, exactly. So, there's a lot of good reveals, like setups and payoffs that have been established. I I don't necessarily agree with people who think that like the war arc is overall like bad writing entirely. Like some people make wide sweeping statements like that. I don't agree with that because there's points in where it's just like absolutely beautiful and very, very well executed and all that stuff. And I think that's one of them. Oh yeah, Obito does get some paper bombs attached to him here. Oh, but he just negates them using Izanagi, I think. Yeah. Those are the ones that come later. Yeah, his reaction here too is pretty priceless. When he sees all this stuff here. That's when he starts activating the Izanami. There's another moment here that like I almost want to make a video about this, but there aren't very many. There are quite a few moments in the series that make me tear up. Like Itachi saying "I love you" to Sasuke is like one of those moments that's just absolutely beautiful. But this, so you know, you're probably familiar. This is in chapter 511 if you want to check this out. But after Konan dies and Nagato's dead, and the three of them are there together, and we have this silhouette, a rectangular silhouette of each of these characters, or rectangular vignette is the word I'm looking for, vignette of each of these characters that corresponds directly to their squares. So there's a visual link between these two things. It's a really nice transition. And then Jiraiya, we have this kind of innocent and kind of sweet thing with Jiraiya and the frogs and everything. It breaks up the tone. Like we just had a very dire moment of seeing Konan dead, and now it's going back to this like kind of sweet innocent moment before. And then we get this like romantic moment between Konan and Yahiko. And this all culminates. Oh, here's another paper bomb example, right? Here's two paper bombs that are coming in, and they blow a hole in the roof, and that's it, right? It doesn't even blow up the whole building. So it's not even like building level, whatever that means. And then this happens, right? This is the Konan's like blood-stained paper. It's the last like little bit of her chakra consciousness. Or maybe it's just on its own. But it floats here. Oh my god, it just breaks my heart every time. This is so beautiful with the sun coming in, and you know she's dead, and it's tragic and it's awful, but it's serene, it's beautiful, and there's the sun. What do you call it? The rainbow. There's the viaduct to peace. Like Nagato's legacy lives on, and they achieve some sunlight. Oh, it's nice, and they're all together again. So it kind of worked out. Except then this right here is so fucking brilliant. These two panels are like two of my favorite panels in the whole show, because here you have the sunlight shining through into the darkness with this arc over here representing Nagato's viaduct of peace and Konan's hope and all that, and it gets inverted into this black hole of darkness, and the arc that goes through Obito's eye is directly reflected and mirrored in the opposite direction, which signifies that Obito has completely like perverted and subverted any hope and any beauty that Nagato and the Akatsuki were trying to achieve. And then it just becomes part of this void, this emotionless blank void of his face. And this is just terrifying. It feels gross. Like, it feels disgusting. Like, you have this quiet, beautiful little moment where you're connecting with this character, and then their final resting place, and then it just gets, like, destroyed, like, thematically by this. And it's so good. So, if nothing else, Obito exists as I guess, like, a catalyst to make other characters' stories better. But he, in and of itself, it's like, I guess I hate him now because he did that, but I don't care enough about him as a person, if that makes sense. So sorry I kind of went on a rant there, but like that, I just had to talk about that. I might actually do a video about that at some point, because it's just like, there's so much going on here, even though it's a very simple thing, that I just adore it. Let me catch up a little bit. He cries a lot, and he's an incel from our era. I mean, honestly, yeah. One of the first things he says is like, I'm doing this because you let Rin die. And I know there's more to it than that. But also, like, you chose the first thing to say to your friend after all this time, and that's what you said? Like, I know it's not that simple, right? It's more about, like, oh, this world is so awful that Rin died in it, therefore the world sucks, therefore let's make another one. But also, like, at the end of this series, you know, he has that conversation with Rin before going to the afterlife, and it's like he sees her as a little girl, and he's like a 30-year-old man or something, and it's like a little weird. I mean, I think what Kishimoto was probably trying to convey was just that like Obito wanted to return to the innocence. Like, Obito stopped being Obito when Rin died, and he became something else, right? He became like this emotionless old monster who wanted revenge and wanted to end the world, essentially. And so he's like reversing time on himself, so to speak, and going back to the point where he's like innocent and a child. But also, but also, this guy, this dude, this motherfucker over here is going to like transition to the afterlife, and the first thing he does is like talk to a little kid, and like go hand in hand with her off to the afterlife. It's a little weird. It's a little much for me. I don't know. Am I being unfair? Um, his best identity was when he had none. Yeah, that's fair. Conan is so the best female character of this show, even though she doesn't appear to talk much, and he appears as a boy too. He didn't grow up. Yeah, so I like the idea that maybe he, like, thematically, narratively, he got kind of stuck as a child, like dissociated with him, with his former self. Um, but yeah, interesting. You know, I like hearing some love for Conan. A lot of people just for whatever reason don't seem to like her, don't seem to think she's very impressive in terms of her combat feats, but then also like as a character she just kind of gets pushed by the wayside. So I'm really glad to hear that. I definitely think that like, so I probably like Hinata. Yeah, this is what I was talking about, right? He turns into a boy, so it's not like he's an adult man like hanging out with a little girl, so just to be clear. But I probably like have a bit more affection for Hinata and maybe like Sasori fights Sakura than I do for Conan, just because she's a little bit like aloof and a little bit distant. We don't get to see her like as wide of a range of emotions, I guess. Well, maybe if we go back to like the backstory stuff, and maybe I'm being unfair. I guess what I'm trying to say is like I think there are other characters that are compelling and that I enjoy reading and seeing on screen, but a lot of them have very little agency, and that the Kishimoto just kind of forgets what to do with them. Like Conan at least is very active. She has like a very powerful and present role in the story. She has some really incredible feats, and she has a complete arc that is very important to what happens. As much as I like Hinata, like she shows up to as an accessory to basically trigger Naruto to get angry. And then she gets mad that Neji dies and also gets a KCM cloak and does some cool stuff in the war, I guess. Like she repels some Ten Tails attacks. But what else does she do? Like, how does she affect the narrative? Whenever she shows up, she's just like, all I want to do is be next to Naruto. I want to feel his warm hand in mine. I feel so comforted by him. Okay, that's fine, but what else? Like, what else are you gonna do? Just exist and feel comforted? Like, you do something else to advance the narrative, like to contribute to the war. I don't know. Conan does a whole lot more, right? Anyway, yeah, like so just to be clear, Hinata in part 1, where she like goes up against Neji, and Hinata transitioning into part 2 and like becoming more confident and finally getting the courage to like stand up to her adversaries and like fight for what she believes in and all that stuff. Like, she is a badass, don't get me wrong. Like when she goes in knowing that she's going to die to pain, she dies for the man she loves. Like, she's defending her village, she's defending her people. She's awesome. But honestly, I think that this is the best narrative arc that we have for her. Like, this is probably the coolest thing she does. This is the most growth that she has. When you see her at the beginning of this fight, right? There's this really cold moment with Neji. Where is it? I want to find where her lip is trembling. Or is it before the fight starts? It'll only take a second to find it. this, right? My eyes can't be deceived. Just now to escape my stare, you averted your own eyes. Glancing upwards toward the upward left, it signaled your recall of a past experience. Right? Like, she goes from this, like, barely able to talk, like, huddling, like, in terror, like this, right? She's, like, whimpering. She's hyperventilating. She's about to have a panic attack. Neji is just disassembling her. She's, like, and then she has this interaction with Naruto, and she resolves, she gathers, and then she fights this guy, even knowing that she's probably going to, like, get fucked up. And then she's, like, coughing up blood, right? She goes through this whole arc. She risks her life. She's literally bleeding all over the floor. And she keeps on going, and she keeps on going. This is cool. This is a cool character. This is a character that's having a moment and some growth. And, like, also keep in mind that we're learning other things too. This isn't just a narrative moment, right? Kishimoto is really in his element here because he's teaching us about the like chakra flow at the same time, and about the gentle fist and the tenketsu and the keirakuke. We're learning all this stuff, and we're learning about Gaara as well. Like, we're getting all these little moments while Hinata is the center of the stage. I really wish we had gotten like 2 or 3 more for her, because if this is where she started, this is like her first major thing, where could she have gone if she gotten more attention and more love? You know what I mean? Anyway, come on, she also risked her life for him. That's pretty strong. Yeah, no, I would definitely agree for that. Like, that moment too is, let's just take a look at that, right? When she comes in to save him during the pain fight. There's this this is not exactly the same, but there's this concept in I don't even know, that sounds too pretentious. There's like a trend sometimes in various media called woman in refrigerator, which sounds a little silly, but it goes back to like this old comic book where you know, the protagonist was male, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But the first time you actually see that character interact with a female character that's like named or that's significant at all, it's, he comes home and he finds his wife like frozen in the refrigerator, and then that makes him like super pissed, and then he goes off to get revenge. So his whole character arc was kind of an accessory. Like, sorry, his wife being killed, she wasn't given like a lot of personality or presence in the story or anything like that. She was killed in a really ridiculous way for the only purpose of just making him mad and giving him something to do. So I kind of felt like Hinata as a character coming out to save Naruto from pain is a really cool and strong thing, and is definitely valuable. But we haven't really seen her do anything in a long time. And then the first thing she does is to step out here, and she doesn't really have a whole lot of screen time. All she does, she shows up and says, "I love you. You're wonderful. You're the best. I'm in love with you." Which, to be fair, is a big moment for her, because she's been terrified of admitting this, and now she's like wide awake. She's being honest. This is cool. This technique is cool. But then she immediately dies, right? She only has a few pages where she gets to be present, as opposed to her fight with Neji earlier on. And then Naruto immediately, Naruto, who's already had like chapters upon chapters of fights with pain, now undergoes this transformation, and now a whole new arc in their fight starts, and they still have like 2 other like segments of their fight to go. So that feels to me like what you might call a woman in refrigerator situation, where Hinata, as cool of a character as she is, as much build up and development that she had previously, her biggest showing is just very, very brief, and then it's just like a stepping stone for Naruto to have even more screen time, Naruto to have even more focus and do even cooler stuff. As opposed to like Fukasaku, right? Pa also dies in this fight, but think about all the different ways that Pa has been useful, all the different ways that Pa has helped Naruto, both in terms of their training and in terms of like Pa helping him summon in the Sage Mode Shadow Clone, and like doing the Frog Song Genjutsu, or like the Frog Call to stun the animals, and then threatening Pain with the prospect of another frog call, like the Genjutsu version rather. It's all like okay, so to be fair, like Hinata is present in this chapter as well, right? It's not like she doesn't exist, but I mean, also let's be real, like Naruto is hanging out with this old frog more than his like love, more than his future wife. It's okay, right? It is okay for Naruto to have old frog friends. It's just a shame that he didn't also then. I mean, like, if you've seen The Last, or what is it? Is it The Last? Yeah, The Last and Road to Ninja. I think The Last more so. Like, Naruto is hardly talks to Hinata. Like, they almost feel like strangers, even though they're about to go through their whole love arc and they've confessed their love, or Hinata has confessed their love. It's really weird. After this thing, Naruto doesn't say anything to Hinata until the war, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's like, it's weird. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like rambling. Oh yeah, that's actually a really good point. The response to pain is strong. Why would you even fight though you know you'll die? Because I never give up. It's my ninja way. Yeah, that is a really good point. So that's something that she's incorporated from Naruto, right? And she's dedicated to Naruto. She's passionate about not just him as a person, but his ideology, the way that she's encouraged him and uplifted him over the years. And so she's embodying the very things that used to inspire her about Naruto, and now like paying it back, so to speak, with her actions and with her determination. So what she's doing is actually really cool. My only objection is just the amount of time that she's on screen, or not on screen. Hinata, she had a big evolution to me. Yeah, definitely compared to part 1. She's definitely grown a lot. Hinata didn't die yet, but Naruto was getting gaslighted by pain. The shock, the harsh reality wake him up and being his 9 tails forms actually. Yeah, I mean, it was all just like a ploy to test the 9 tails like fury, I guess you could say, right? To you, she's more of a device than a concrete character, right? She's a character to embellish another. So it's yes and no. I think that going back to part 1, I lost the chapter, sorry. Going back to part 1, she feels like a very complete and well-rounded character. She feels like someone who's got a lot of presence in the story, and you're just starting to see how far she could potentially grow, like how much she can change. And also, you could say that she's just doing it because she's like secondary to Naruto, right? Like Naruto's the hero, he's the cool guy, he's the one who's inspiring, and Hinata's like the underdog, or the like the sidekick. But that's okay. Like a sidekick can still be a compelling character, and we see Hinata like level up a lot and go through everything she goes through with Neji, and that's compelling. So if she's doing that while she's being a sidekick, that's fine. I have no problem with that at all. The only thing I'm disappointed by is that now that character who's been set up and established very well and is very compelling just doesn't really get used. This is the first time we really see her doing something cool. I mean, the time we saw her before this, I think, was just when she was wait, there were 2 times, right? There was when they were going after Sasuke. I think she was part of the group of people looking for Sasuke, but I don't remember if she did anything beyond like scouting with the Byakugan. And then she was nervous about Naruto when he first came back to the village and kind of like avoided him and then passed out. So think about the ways that Naruto changes and matures by the time he reaches this point in the series, and then think about like, well, what has Hinata been doing this whole time? You know, I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more because I thought she was a good character, and I'm disappointed that we didn't get more because she was a good character. And it's the lack of further development and further elaboration that I think is bad, quote unquote. Yeah. And I think in this situation, yes, she's being used to embellish another, which again is okay. But just as a parallel, right? Let's just look at one thing while I'm on the subject. Going back to part 1 and looking at, is it chapter 130? I'm probably going to get blocked again if I'm not careful with how quickly I'm leafing through things. Let's try chapter, what did I say, 136. I'm going to pull up the specific thing that happens with Naruto. okay, so when Naruto clashes with Gaara, now I might be reading into this too much. This is all like interpretation. It's art interpretation, right? So it's not necessarily true. It's just how I view things, right? Naruto is smashing Gaara in the head, right? So their two perspectives, in addition to their two like powers and ability sets, are clashing with one another. And the way in which he's connecting with Gaara is like, you know, he's not attacking him from a distance anymore. He has to get up close and personal and smash his head against Gaara, make physical contact with him to wake him up. And then look, his blood is mixing directly with Gaara's blood, right? The two of them are having a blood connection based on their impact. And then this superimposition. Now, I don't want to get... I'm about to say something stupid, okay? Just warning you. Okay? But I'm just saying. Where's the actual chapter? 1 second. Let me get rid of some of these tabs that I don't need anymore. Okay. Right? You've seen this before, right? And then there's this. Now, is this a direct reference to this? Absolutely not. As far as I can tell, there's no direct parallel between these two things. I don't think that fucking Kishimoto was inspired by Da Vinci necessarily. However, when you look at these two characters superimposed like this, it's kind of hard at first glance, like if your eyes are blurred, to tell where one of them stops and the other one begins. Like their hair is even both spiky and it's kind of like blending together. Like you can definitely see the difference in the outlines, but it almost starts to blend together and it looks similar to this imagery of like one person that's subdivided into multiple parts. And I think that's more what I was going for. Not that it's like a reference to it, but that visually speaking, we now see these two characters, despite their differences, despite their pain and their hatred, they are now kind of merging and overlapping and connecting in a way that's both like physical and both in terms of the art and the way that they're drawn. And then this is further reinforced by this. I mean, I can't make it any more clear than this. Not only is it just like each of them is reflecting the other, but look at the level of detail too in how like the eyes are lined up, the blood almost seems to flow naturally between Naruto's face and Gaara's face. And then this indentation in the blade, it's super well done. And they are direct reflections of one another. This happens after chapters and chapters of them building up like everything that happens between them. Now, this is Naruto's friend, enemy, antagonist, and then friend. And this is what they go through together. What do you think Naruto should go through with the character that winds up being his wife and bearing his children? If this is what he gets to experience with his enemy, his rival, a rival that doesn't have as much screen time in part 2, but that's okay. Where should we calibrate our expectations or our hopes for him when it comes to... I like this old look of Minato, by the way. A little bit more aggressive, a little spikier. I like that. Where should we calibrate our expectations when it comes to how he would interface with his wife? I think she deserves more time. I think she deserves more moments like that. Like the bond between people that want to spend the rest of their lives together, I think should come with things like that. Of course, I don't want to see Naruto do this to Hinata. Of course, I had to end on the worst possible panel to make my point. But anyway, hopefully that made some sense. Okay, see a question. Question for you. What do you think of the Obito statement for pain? Meaning that because Naruto destroyed 2 hearts of Kakuzu in a single blow, won't be easy for him and Naruto a good friend. So let me think about that for a second. So you're saying that, yeah, there was a statement that Obito made that he should be careful about Naruto because Naruto shouldn't be like underestimated. He should because he killed 2 of Kakuzu's hearts in one hit with the Rasen Shuriken, right? I think that that statement makes absolute sense. Naruto is able to kill Naruto is able to kill the paths of pain with Rasen Shuriken. I think he probably, I think the Rasen Shuriken, especially the Sage mode Rasen Shuriken, probably has enough AP to damage any of the paths of pain. I mean, obviously, we're talking like the Preda path doesn't get a chance to absorb it. You know, it just like makes it through to him. Naruto also has survived encounters with Deidara and Orochimaru and I was gonna say Itachi, but that's not quite fair because Itachi was only at 30% and was never really trying to kill Naruto or was a clone or whatever. You know, there's different circumstances. But the point is that like Naruto has gone up against opponents who are arguably stronger than him multiple times and either survived or triumphed or found some way around things. And now he has this jutsu which Kakashi said might even be impossible, right? Like when Kakashi was talking to Naruto about developing the Rasen Shuriken in the first place, he's like, yeah, Minato couldn't pull this off. And it might not even be possible to do this. This might be an S rank jutsu or higher. So good luck. And he put in a lot of effort. And when Kakuzu first sees that jutsu too, I think he's like, he takes one look at it and he's like, I cannot get hit by that. Like the dirt, like dust particles or whatever in the air around him are disintegrating, and he's like, shit, I can't let that touch me. So yeah, it makes sense. Naruto clearly has the ability to damage the paths and to destroy them. He also has a lot of backup. Like I don't know how much Pain knows about like the toads coming in from Miyaboku and all that, or Obito does, but that's also a factor. You know, he has powerful allies. I wonder, I can't remember off the top of my head if they like talked about the Will of Fire or anything like that, but part of what makes Konoha Shinobi strong is not just like their combat abilities, but also their that like mental resilience and the Will of Fire and all that stuff, and how they band together and fight for their friends. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. If you're trying to ask whether yeah, here's the thing I was talking about, where like the rocks in the air are just like disintegrating down to their like fine particles, and Kakuzu says, if I get hit with that, it'll be bad. I mustn't let it happen, right? So obviously, and this is before he even like got it working 100% of the time. This is before he achieved Sage Mode and all that. Again, I don't know if Obito knew about Sage Mode, but just being technical here, Kakashi only killed one of his. Kakashi's a much older and more experienced and has a much higher body count and much higher mission count than Naruto at this point in the series. He's arguably smarter, like almost certainly smarter and like more technically proficient and like more calculating and has a wider range of jutsu, etc., etc., etc. Kakashi only managed to kill one of Kakuzu's hearts with his Raikiri, which is his signature jutsu, probably his strongest attack. Naruto killed two of his hearts with just a Rasen. Well, I say just. He killed two of his hearts with one attack. And so this thing that he has, I think Kakashi even says, like, Naruto has surpassed me. Even if Naruto were completely fucking incompetent, which he's not, he's basically just, like, given himself an orbital laser equivalent. Like, he's given himself an extremely powerful ability. As long as he can hit it, as long as he can land it, rather, he's an extreme menace to any. I mean, like, let's be honest, right? If this hit Obito, and Obito like was out of Kamui usage or whatever, he was on cooldown from that, and this hit Obito, it would destroy Obito, right? It would tear him apart. Does he say? So he says magnificent jutsu here. He can't even follow it with his Sharingan. I'm trying to see where exactly Kakashi says like you've surpassed me at this point. I don't think he says it out loud. Oh, here we go. Such confidence and the wit to turn failure on its head and quickly plan its next move. Naruto has become strong, truly strong. Jutsu that were beyond even the fourth Hokage are well within his command. I guess it's time to pass the torch. He has surpassed me. Can you sense it? You are always before his eyes, inspiring him. You make him strong. You do know that, don't you, Sasuke? Right? So you could, if you were in a debate, people would argue about this and they would say, well, he's just talking about the Rasen Shuriken. He's only surpassed him in the sense of, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use mocking a mocking tone of voice like that. Like, if you happen to believe that, that's your perspective. I don't want to be offensive at all. Some people, I think, would be rude and would potentially say that there's only one way to look at this. And they would say that this is only referring to the Rasen Shuriken itself. But I disagree. I think it's referring to the Rasen Shuriken as well as everything that Naruto did to put into like the execution and landing of the jutsu as well. Now, does that mean that Naruto would beat Kakashi in a fight? I don't think so. But Naruto was able to do more damage to Kakuzu than Kakashi was, arguably, as well. So maybe Kakashi's being a little generous here. Maybe you could like push back on his statement or say that he's being like too kind. But at the same time, like, Naruto gets stronger between now and the pain fight as well. So anyway, I think I probably rambled too much here. You would for sure lost an arm on like Kakuzu. Yeah. To give Kakuzu some credit, at least he kept all of his limbs and appendages, right? Like, at least even when he's about to die, he's got a cool haircut. He's not crying. Like, he's not he's still. Oh, this is kind of cool though. He looks like his chest has like been ripped apart. That is pretty brutal. But he still kind of like in some way approaches his death with dignity. Sort of the dignity of a worm, I guess. It's like I gotta check my phone. Okay. I'm gonna go for a few more minutes. I think I'm gonna go till until the hour rounds about, and then I'll have to head out. Yeah, still angry. Yeah. So I think to try to summarize what I was talking about with the paper bombs and what I was even talking about in the first place, after like 3 hours of trying to come back to figure out like what was my thesis statement at the beginning of all this. It was basically this: Kakuzu blocking a paper bomb, and saying, "I hardened my arm, so I'm fine." To me, I think it is fair to interpret that as if the paper bomb would have hurt him if he didn't do that. I think you could potentially disagree with that, and that's okay, but I think it's also a totally fair and reasonable interpretation. I think if you look at that, and then you look at the use later in the series, like against Jubito or whatever, it gives you an opportunity to go through the series and say, let's take a look at these common baseline ninja tools. Let's talk about how they're used. Let's talk about their advantages and disadvantages, and try to understand them in the context of the narrative overall. I think that I personally, very subjectively, very personally, can find that it's a missed opportunity when people are just like, because this point doesn't matter for this debate, or I don't want the point to like come up in the debate, I don't think it's like on topic, to then suggest that it's irrelevant or pointless or stupid to care about it or to want to talk about it. That's kind of my point. That's like the take-home message, is that I guess don't let anybody tell you that something that you're curious about or that you think is cool is not worth your time. Like, figure that out yourself. Go look at it. Go try to understand it. Maybe you'll come to the conclusion at the end of all that it wasn't worth your time and that you did waste your time. And I guess that sucks. But what sucks more is feeling like you can't, like, or shouldn't even try in the first place, or that you should discourage other people from doing their research and like trying to learn and understand it. Because to me, like, what I this is just my personal bias or whatever, so it's fine, right? But like, what I personally love about the debates is that, like, how crazy is this? I don't know if you guys were ever like what your experience of being a nerd was, or if you would even call yourself a nerd, or if you've ever had like an interest that is kind of niche and maybe not very popular, and how it kind of sucks. Like, you're into that thing and maybe not a lot of people are talking about it, or it's kind of hard to find people to talk to about it or whatever. And then you go, like, imagine like you're a kid and you just like start getting into Naruto and you're like getting into it. There's nobody at your school to talk to or whatever. And then all of a sudden you go online and you see this. You see 4 hours of people with like almost 10,000 views, with like was it 6,500 subscribers, and this is like a relatively small channel compared to like something like Six or Swag, right? And they're talking for 4 hours about the series that you love and that you're interested in. And look at all these people in the Discord and everything, right? What a great opportunity to like just talk about this shit that you all enjoy and understand it better, and maybe come up with some crazy stupid theories, and maybe people say some stupid shit, maybe people get upset and yell, because we're all human, and that's all fine, right? But imagine then being that kid and then coming into that environment and being told, like, because you had insert idea here, that you're, and then just pretend I said a bunch of slurs and then screamed, and then, or pretend I said like, what was the thing I was watching recently? I think I was watching a Seth video recently, and at a certain point he said like, if you don't agree with what I just said, you're just nitpicking and biased. There's no possible way to interpret it other than what I said. So like, you're just being too skeptical, and there's a certain point at which like being too skeptical, like your standard of evidence is too high. It basically was like, either agree with me or you're stupid, and don't try to disagree with me because you'll be stupid. And I'm like, come the fuck on, right? It just like shuts down the discourse. It just like stops anything interesting from happening. And like, for what? Like, I don't get what is gained out of doing that at all. So maybe it's excessive of me to talk for 3 hours about a scrap of paper. Maybe. But I would rather do that than just like yell at people about like, this is what you can and can't believe, you know what I mean? Okay, let me catch up on things here. Due to transformations for his back. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Kakuzu's inside is made of tentacles. I'd be curious what you think about this. Do you think his like entire interior of his body is all made up of the tentacles, or do you think he still has like basic human anatomy and he's summoning the tentacles on top of that? Like, does he still have like a liver and intestines and whatever else? Like, does he have a digestive system? Because something I noticed the other day is that right before this fight, they have been sitting and they've been taking the chakra out of Yukito, and I think they've been sitting for 6 days without moving. Maybe you already know what I'm talking about. Like, they get up to start coming to the village, and I think it's the next chapter, because here they're, is it really this one? I keep coming back here. No, it's got to be down here. Like, Hidan is like, I can't believe it was 6 days. I'm so stiff. Damn it. I'm not going to be able to find it, huh? Maybe you know what I'm talking about, but like, oh yeah, here we go. 6 days without moving. I'm ready to rampage. So were they actually sitting there still and not moving for 6 days straight? If so, does that mean that they don't need to sleep or eat or drink? And if so, does that mean that like they just have these superhuman abilities? Or does Kakuzu like is he not even like human anymore? Is he basically just a mass of tentacles, and he doesn't need to, like, Hidan is immortal, right? So maybe he just like doesn't categorically need to eat or drink. But as for Kakuzu, is he, I don't know, more tentacle than man at this point? Be curious. But know that most people didn't debate for the truth. They debate to win. It's only selfish and egotistical most of the time. Yeah, and to be fair, it can be really fun. Like, sometimes you're just like most of the time I can't handle it because it's too intense. But there's a debater called D1 that you might be familiar with, and sometimes he'll have a debate with somebody, and he's just so crazy and so over the top that sometimes it's just kind of funny. Honestly, it's as long as both of the people there are like in on the joke, so to speak. Like, even with trying to think of a good example. Yeah, sorry, I kind of blanked for a second there because I was trying to think of another example. But like, if both people kind of like shake hands you know, like you can go into a boxing ring with your friend and you can shake hands before going in and be like, okay, we're going to beat the shit out of each other. We're going to try really, really hard to defeat the other person. And this is going to be a fight. But when we're done, we're going to shake hands and still be friends. Or if you've ever listened to like Rap Battle, like King of the Dot or like Grind Time or anything like that, there are people who are best friends and they will come up to rap battle each other and they will say the meanest, like sickest, nastiest stuff that only a best friend could possibly know. They'll bring up like the worst things each other have done and go at each other's throats, and then the moment it's done, they'll like hug it out and they'll be like best friends all over again. You know what I mean? So as long as everybody's okay with that, and as long as everybody in the audience understands that, then I have no problem with it. It's none of my business, right? It's not like my place to tell other people how they can and can't like hang out with one another and interface that way. What kind of sucks though is that if you're not in on the joke, if you just come across the content without that context, or if you like just come into a debate and you don't understand that that's what you're getting yourself into, then it does wind up pushing people away. And there's a certain phrases and certain rhetoric that get used very casually that I think just kind of need to go away. It's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, it can be fun. It's just like you gotta, I don't know, plan for it and be clear about it. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm arguably a weeb. I would like to say that there is a nice way to be a weeb. You know who's a nice weeb? This guy, WeaabooWarrior. As far as I've seen, he's actually a pretty good weeb. But also, you know, passion is fine, but there's limits. Yeah, I don't want to comment much about like Seth or any drama to that extent because again, it's not really my business. I try to stay out of any kind of drama. It's just not like why I'm interested in this stuff. I guess I'm kind of like a bleeding heart. I kind of want everybody to get along. I want conflict to hopefully engender like future discussion, and it's fine if there's rivalries or whatever, but I don't know if you saw any of the stuff that happened on like Keemstar and just like the threats and everything that came out of that. It's so deeply ironic to me. I know I said this before, but like it's a series about peace and love overcoming conflict and adversity, and there's people just like screaming at each other and threatening each other, and it's just like, guys, come on, like how the fuck did we get here? But I won't say anything beyond that other than like I just hope people like get along, I guess. In the war arc cut up by Izumo, oh yeah, that's true. Like they both pierced him. I know some people say that Edo Tensei necessarily have lower durability. Not sure if I agree with that. It could be. But that is, I think, something that you should keep into account when talking about Kakuzu's durability. He was pierced by metal weapons. Now, whether you think that's invalid because of Edo, that's up to you, but it did happen, so it's worth talking about. And when he unleashed hearts, yeah. He can eat if he wants based on data book. Oh, that's right. That's a good point. Yeah, I forgot about the favorite dishes. I know that like Deidara eats the dango, right? Like those three little balls on the stick with Toby, but I never seen Hidan eat or Kakuzu eat. But that makes sense. Yeah. Well, after that ramble that I just did there, I think I kind of accomplished what I was hoping to, was just to like yap about the paper bumps for a while. In the next episode, I can try to get further on into the debate, or I could potentially like move on to a different topic. At this point, we've gotten almost 41 minutes into the debate, so I don't know. It'll probably take a long time to get through the rest of it. I think there's a couple of things that I identified, like I really want to talk about this and I really want to talk about that, so I might like skip around a little bit. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the soul pull technique, the Ningendo's human path's ability. And I think it might make sense to maybe talk about that next, as opposed to just like going through like this long discussion here. But let me know what you think. If you'd rather I just kind of keep going minute by minute, I'm totally happy to do that as well. Or if there's another topic you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know. I'll probably post, I haven't done any like community posts or anything yet, but I'll probably post something on Tuesday just to kind of try out the system. And if you have any ideas for topics that you'd like me to cover, always feel free to hit me up or leave a comment on this video And if not, I'll just like happily continue like rambling about this stuff. And I think that's it. So, oh wait, let me read your comment here. That's not valid because he didn't turn into paper, which means even if cut, he doesn't do damage to him. He only turned paper in one moment. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. I'm sorry. I think probably because I was just like rambling a bit. You said that he didn't turn into paper? Yeah, sorry. If you could paraphrase that, that'd be great, because I think otherwise I think I just kind of didn't understand. Oh, you participated with Noodles in the Kakuzu versus Pain video. Interesting. Was that like the 55-minute long one? I think I saw that a while ago. See? Minato versus Kakuzu? No, the Kakuzu versus Pain. Where's that? This one here? I'm probably staring right at it and just missing it. Oh, this one, the Brutal Honesty Kakuzu versus Pain. That's cool. I'll check that out if you'd like. I think I saw this a while ago, but it's been a while, so if you'd like, I'd be happy to watch through it. I recall disagreeing with it, so just to give you a heads up, I will probably disagree with some of the things that are said. But kudos. I mean, like, this has got like a lot of views. It's obviously something that I'm sure Noodles cares about as well. So it's awesome that you got to contribute to that. Hopefully it was a good experience. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Edo. Oh, I'm sorry. I totally blanked the Edo Tensei. You're right. The Edo Tensei are injured when turned into paper, and Kakuzu wasn't versus Izumo Kotetsu, so no damage. He only turned paper when he was almost sealed by the Gedo statue roar. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Okay, so you're saying that, like, because he was stabbed, that we would expect to see paper coming off of, like, through the stab wounds, or like scattering out behind him or something. That's interesting. I'll have to think about that some more. My intuition is to say that, like, the fact that he was pierced by those weapons at all means that, like, the weapons would have had to have overcome some kind of durability, right? To get, even if that durability is 0, they're still passing through a physical substance in order to get inside of him. And so if that physical substance were stronger, then it would repel it, or maybe the weapons would like break against it if it were armored or something. But again, like, connecting that back to a live Kakuzu, I don't know, I'd have to think about, or I would have to ask you to further elaborate on that. You did 2 drawings at the end of the videos. Oh, cool. All right, so I'll definitely check it out then for sure. And that's cool. It's a little weird to me. Like, if I remember correctly, I think he said for the multiversal Naruto video that he had collaborated with a bunch of different people. And on the one hand, I really love seeing, like, the community come together and all contribute. Because I think ultimately, like, no matter how good your ideas are as an individual, you can only, like, get better if you have people to, like, challenge you and to push you, and to contribute. You make something cool together. So that's really cool to know that, you know, he's incorporating help from people in the community. And I'll try to keep that in mind too. I'm gonna be honest with you and say that the multiversal video, I really dislike this one. Not calling anybody out for editing or like saying that anybody who worked on it is like stupid or anything. Just I happen to very strongly disagree with this, and I've actually started working on a response video about it. Just haven't finished it yet. So since I'm talking to you directly, I don't know if you worked on that one, but for the record, if I say anything like critical about either of these 2 things, it's never a personal attack, right? I'm never like going after you or even Noodles himself as a person. But I am going to be straightforward if I think something doesn't match up. And specifically about the multiversal one, the issue I had with it is that I felt like it was deliberately misleading people and deliberately like telling people you're not allowed to disagree, right? This is kind of the Seth video that I was talking about before did the same thing. It's like, what did he say? It's like Naruto the Last, or Road to Ninja is canon, and if you don't think it's canon, you're just wrong and you're nitpicky and biased and you have no leg to stand on. Like, are you gonna prove that it's canon? Are you gonna provide like some evidence for that? Or are you just gonna say that, right? Like, so that's you kind of, I think, are starting to get an impression of what like my perspective is. That I prefer encouraging other people to look for dissenting evidence, as opposed to just saying you're not allowed to. But you know, we'll see. In the meantime, I'll be happy to rewatch this, and I'll look out for your drawings at the end as well. Actually, is it something that I could just like see real quick? Let me see. Is it like around here? This is cool. I like this. Roasted clover. This is cool too. Yeah, these are really fun. With the Shinra Tensei. Ooh, that's nice too. Look at that. Oh, the line work, the shadowing and stenciling stuff. Kakuzu God. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Didn't you say the other day that that he called you the Kakuzu God or something like that? Wow. Yeah, this is awesome, man. The level of detail here is amazing. Check that out. Cool. You got the masks in the background with the shading. Yep. The coloring is really, really good. Oh yeah, the look of intensity, and oh, that's really cool too. You drew the. I know this is a little detail, but you drew the symbol of the village like on the side like that, so we're seeing it from the side perspective. That's really cool too. Yeah, this is all really nice. I like that you put like his fat stacks of cash over here as well, because you know he's got to get that paper for sure, for sure. Yeah, I can see why they call you the Kakuzu God. That's cool. Oh, nice, nice. Well, that's great. See, like everybody coming together and like contributing to this thing. Sure, thanks. I disagree with this outcome, but despite that, I can really appreciate the artwork here. I mean, like the detail. These trees almost look like smooth and I don't know. They're very well sculpted. Like the musculature on Kakuzu's arms over here is really good. The hair detail, like everything, the neck, the muscles, and the cloth. There's a lot of like really great attention to detail in the materials and everything too. So a lot of weight in this. So give my compliments to, let me see, Truyax. Is that how you say it? Truyax. Please pass along my compliments to him, or her, or them. With that being said, I think I'm gonna need to go check on my dog and give her a walk. I've had a lot of fun going over all this stuff. I appreciate you showing up and asking all your questions. It really feels awesome to be able to share this stuff with people. And the conversation and the dialogue is always a lot of fun. I'll put up that community post in a couple of days. And feel free to let me know if you have any suggestions. Otherwise, I'll just keep trundling along with the video. And my next stream will probably be next Sunday around the same time. If you guys want it to be a little earlier, if it's easier for your sleep schedules or whatever, I can. Otherwise, I'm just going to default it to 8 to 11. And by the end of the month, I hope to be able to stream a little bit more. But probably for the next 2 streams, it's just going to be on Sundays. And then moving forward, we'll see how things go. Oh, you say I chose as well the Chibaku Tensei because it's my scenario of how would Kakuzu respond. Okay, cool. I'll keep a lookout for that. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, thank you again for everything. I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna say good night. Good luck with your travel. I hope your time is comfortable and you have a chance to like relax and to kind of enjoy yourself. And I hope the trip home. Well, the trip home is probably not going to be before I talk to you again, but still, hope everything goes well. I don't know if our Heart is still there, but if so, like I hope everything goes well. It's with your schoolwork and with managing that along with your professional work as well. Yeah, okay, in that case, I might start a little bit earlier. I'll schedule the stream in advance and let you guys know what time I'm starting. But yeah, I'm going to head out. Thank you very much, and take care.